product.
For 4 years, the Tour de Georgia has captivated the people of the Peach State. It has coursed the most beautiful roads. It's captured that feeling of well-being. And this year, the people of Georgia can enjoy an extra day as the race goes from 6 to a full week. The big names of cycling worldwide are here. Tommy Danielson, the Durango Kid, is back after finishing second a year ago. While Christian van der Velde, the winner of the Tour of Luxembourg in Europe, is on great form and anxious to build on it. And there's Levi Leipheimer, already a winner in February in the Tour of California. He's out now for the USA Double. In 5 short years, the Tour de Georgia, presented by AT&T, has become America's top cycling stage race. It's 650 miles, and this year it's even 1 day longer. It runs for a week. Hello everybody, welcome to Versus and the coverage of the Tour de Georgia. I'm Phil Liggett. Alongside me is Bob Roll, who used to be a very good cyclist himself.
A long time ago.
Now Bob, first of all, take us quickly through the route, because it's a much more interesting route this year.
The time trial is up a climb to finish. That'll be a different scenario than the flat fast time trial. It'll be more about climbing, more about power than actual speed on the flats. Also, the Brasstown Bald Stage, one of the toughest stages in all of North American bike racing, has a lot harder climbs before getting to that very tough final climb. So the Brasstown Bald Stage was going to be a spectacular day of racing. Then, of course, it's the traditional finish in the outskirts of Atlanta with the circuit race, mostly for the sprinters. It's a great bike race.
And it brings together 15 teams and a good sprinkling of the world's best professional bike riders. And many of those, of course, coming from the United States, because this race has never been won by anybody else but an American. There might be changes this year because there are strong riders from abroad. But let's talk quickly about the Americans. Levi Leipheimer?
Levi Leipheimer, winner of the Tour of California earlier this year. He brings a very strong team. Of course, Tom Danielson. He won here 2 years ago. And George Hincapie, after that terrible crash in the Tour of California, he's back for racing. This is his first race back in the Tour of Georgia.
Yes, all eyes will be on George, and of course too there is Christian van der Velde. He's an American, but he makes his name in Europe as a past winner of the Tour of Luxembourg over there. But there are other challenges too, coming from the foreign lands, and men from Mapai, Quickstep, Lotto. They're all here and they all expect to do well. Well, let's find out how they get on. And no better place to start, Bob, than Peachtree City, about 30 kilometres outside of Atlanta. It's the home of the organisers, Medley Sports, and as always, the communities playing a great part in the atmosphere.
Tour of Georgia has one of the best ambiances of all the bike races in North America. Everybody in the communities get involved.
Well, one man who expects to do well in the race, he won a stage last year, is this man, Freddy Rodriguez. What does Ivan Dominguez think?
It's a sprint stage, but today with a wind condition, we never know. You know, the group can split very easy. Even if it's a tailwind, sometimes happens. So we'll see. You know, I did well like a few years ago here, and the last time I did it, I crashed. I was there in the last corner, but I crashed. So I think I'm not going to have any problems today, but you never know. We'll see.
You never know. Well, the Toyota United man is a very fast finisher indeed. The gun has gone off, which is always unusual in big-time cycling, but they usually fail to stop. The boys are on the way.
Absolutely. That's interesting words from Ivan Dominguez there. We're going to go through the route real quick, and we're going to start here. Peachtree City down to Macon. Thomaston up to Rome, the longest stage of the race. These are a couple of rolling stages. This to Chattanooga, featuring some harder climbs. There's the time trial, Chickamauga. And Dalton to Brasstown, the hardest stage. Of course, Stone Mountain, and then Atlanta is the finishing town.
Well, one man who's very interested in how this race goes is Ken Stewart. Here he is now talking about the financial effect this race has on the state.
To the state of Georgia, this is $121 million of economic impact on our state. And we realize that we have almost 2.5 million people that are going to be watching this worldwide that get to know our state, get to know our people and our culture. And so we're very, very proud to host it here in Georgia.
Well, thank you, Ken. I must say you make us very nervous with all those viewers today. This is Victor Rapinski here. He's just dropped back to talk to his team manager, our new team manager, formerly his teammate there, Vasily Davydenko. He's been on the move all day, Bob, in one break or another, and this time he seems to have cracked it because he's got into this front group of 5 riders.
The moves from Belarus there. Viktor Rapinski, one of the fastest men in domestic bike racing. He's got a wicked sprint. That's the breakaway companions that he's been off and on throughout the day. Very aggressive riding from Rapinski. He's got a teammate up in the breakaway as well. And this is a handy little breakaway. There's been a lot of crosswinds on stage number 1, has blown the peloton apart at times. The peloton is chasing quite a few minutes down. Daniele Contrini from the Tinkoff squad, a brand new team on the block this year, and he has made the break as well.
Yes, he was took quite a bad knock in the Milan-San Remo Classic in March, so he's just starting to make a comeback here. Also in this breakaway is Ben Day, who's a teammate of Rapinski, former time trial champion of Australia. He's an Australian who seems to enjoy himself. Now take a look at the Garmin Edge computer there, because that is on the handlebars of the bike in the background. It tells you the time you've been riding the stage, it tells you your heartbeat, how high you've been climbing, what your average speed is. I never know how they compute all this and get on with the bike race, Bob.
That's a lot of information to digest. And there's the speed, over 40 miles an hour for the breakaway. So the wind's whipping up the action. Here's our leaders, Contrini, Ola Renshaw, Ben Day, Viktor Rapinski, and Mike Sayers from the BMC squad.
The most interesting aspect is, Bob, these boys have got a lead now of over 5 minutes on the main field. We're heading down to Macon. We've got 3 circuits when we get there. There's the peloton. Not surprising, a little bit of spearheading work being done by Team Discovery Channel, because surprisingly, no man in that front group. They'll want to bring this race back together. Now, only 4 of the stages have small time bonuses at the finishing line. This is one of them. So they won't want that breakaway to succeed today. And I think it was to be expected that Discovery would start the chase.
Big Pavel Padernos on the front of the peloton right now. He's very good at this. He does it throughout the Tour de France year in and year out. And I think he's done something like 5,000 kilometers on the front of the Tour in the last few years.
Here's Contrini now back of the car. A little bit of advice. How's the breakaway going? Well, the answer is not bad just now, because it's beginning to look as though the backfield should be a little concerned about this break. It's very unusual to get a breakaway succeeding down in Macon. It's more likely it will come back together again, but this combination is working well. This is the first time we've really seen the colours of the new Tinkoff credit systems, especially here in the United States, and they've only just got a late entry into this event with Tyler Hamilton on the team. Everything to race for. Welcome back to the opening stage of the Tour de Georgia. 98.5 miles today as the riders get used to the open road for a week of racing, heading to Macon now. And the breakaway, as you can see, those 5 riders closing in now, the peloton just a little bit down from 5:48, just over 3 minutes, Bob. And all of the work being done by Tommy Danielson, or is it Levi Leipheimer's Discovery team?
That's a very good question. Who the leader is going to be from that squad at the moment, that would be none other than Brian Van Borg leading the chase there for the Discovery team. Chasing this group, Daniele Contrini, the only pro based in Europe in this breakaway. The rest of the riders here are in domestic racing, and the Tinkoff man there on the right-hand side of your screen, Daniele Contrini, won a stage of the Giro d'Italia, so a very top performer in the breakaway. The gap just under 3 minutes now, and that is Pavel Padernos on the front, along with Brian Van Borg. Brian Van Borg, a stage winner here at the Tour of Georgia a couple of years ago. Quick Step getting into the movement also, along with the Lotto squad there, rotating to the front. You can see the big guns now starting to come to the front, trying to get that breakaway down a little bit further.
Well, this is because the sprinters have got a big interest in this now. It's a tough circuit here in Macon as well. And I see the Predictor Lotto team thinking no doubt of Freddie Rodriguez. He pinched the stage win in this event last year. He almost didn't make the race start because of a problem back in Brussels airport, where I think the baggage handlers went on strike or something, and he was worried about getting his bike out. But he made it, and he's in the race. Viktor Rapinski, well, it looks as though the legs are giving up a little bit here. He's dangling at the back of this breakaway now. He's been an absolute hero today. He's been away virtually from the start of the day. And he got about 31 miles in before he got really established with a strong group of riders. Contrini also showing concern now. He's been a pro since 1996. It's a long career for him, hampered a bit this year by the accident he had in the big classic in Italy, Milan-San Remo. Little souvenir off to the side there, drinking bottle with somebody. I must say, Bob, they do a terrific job of closing down the roads in the US, and again, another fine example. 3:05. You know, there's a chance they could stay away.
There's a very good chance they could stay away. Into the streets of Macon now for the finishing circuit. They got 3 laps. A little bit of discussion there, and there goes Contrini now putting in the first attack.
Well, he's gone, and he's made a sudden move, and that's the way to do it. A little bit of resistance being shown by navigators. but I'm not sure after this long breakaway they've got the strength. Now, the thing about the finishing circuit here in Macon, it is not flat. It is a hard circuit, this, and I think he's chosen the exact right place to stretch them out. It's Doug Ollerenshaw who's trying to get on terms.
That was Rapinski off the back there, immediately dropped, but you can't blame him having been in the breakaway throughout the day. Ben Day trying to cover the acceleration as well, and Mike Sayers on these cobble streets with the climb. This is a very tough circuit.
It looks as though Ben Day is also in a spot of bother there because he's gritting his teeth. Mike Sayers just trying to get on. This has been a huge effort here. Very confident one, I must say, by Daniele Contrini. There is Ben Day now being unhitched at the back. No sign of his teammate who's even further back. A big effort. If you can just keep them reasonable, the elastic doesn't snap, then he's on the back of them as they go over the top.
Just over the top of the climb, Ben Day struggling to get back on terms. Mike Sayers tacked on the back now, and it's Contrini doing all of the work. Doug Ollerenshaw from the Health Net squad right on the wheel of the Italian. You got to give this man a lot of respect in the breakaway. Contrini, one of the top performers, very consistent professional from Italy. On a new team, he liked to show off his colors a little bit, and he is now put in the first attack. If he doesn't get rid of these riders, here's the peloton, 2:14, so they've closed down just about a minute in the last few kilometers. If Contrini can't get rid of the other riders in the breakaway, they'll know he's maybe a little bit stronger. They won't cooperate at all.
Well, that attack by Daniele Contrini might well have made the difference between capture and not here now, because the peloton behind is going to need a lot of effort here to close that gap as we get down towards the finish. And he split the breakaway, and look at this, he's made the move and he won't stop working at the front. That might be a mistake here, because Doug Ollerenshaw struggled but mastered him very quickly. Ben Day struggled even more but got up there, and Mike Sayers, the fourth man in the breakaway. It's still the odds against Contrini here now, the outsider as it were, both on team and nationality. A Russian cycling team and an Italian pedaling the bike. But look at this man go, he's really feeling fired up today.
Absolutely. Look back, put in another little acceleration there. Ollerenshaw hesitating a little bit, and that's how the gap is opened up. That's quite amazing to just take these riders right off your wheel, accelerate. Mike Sayers hesitating now. Let's see if these other three men can get back to the wheel of Daniele Contrini, but he is putting in a huge attack now. It looks like Ollerenshaw reacting now. He knows it's a dangerous moment. He's got to get back up to the wheel of Contrini to have a chance for the stage win after all day in the breakaway.
Well, somebody opened the door, as it were, there as Contrini came up the hill and round the bend, and now he's got the gap he's been working very hard for. It looks as though he's shrugged off the injuries from Milan San Remo. This is a big comeback, and if he wins it here, it'll be the first victory on the very first visit by his team to the United States, and that's a great way to start. Well, he's up the cobble road here. This hill belies just how hard it is. Once he tips over the top, though, he's around towards the finish, and Daniele Contrini is enjoying the escape now. And what he's done with this series of attacks when he came into the town was break the confidence of that chasing bunch, because there's no way now the sprinters are going to catch up.
You can't call this a tactical move at all. He went to the front. He had the most power, accelerated away from the breakaway. They're still just dangling off the back. They need to close this gap down just near the top of this climb to have a chance still. But Contrini riding incredibly strong. The peloton chasing hard, but still, we got to say, 1 minute 37 behind. So great action on the front of the bike race. Toyota United sensing perhaps Ivan Dominguez for the stage win. They've come to the front, but they're still 1 minute 30 plus behind Contrini's little breakaway.
Well, that's a good move, but it's all come too late now. Just over a minute. They're passing through underneath what is the finishing line banner there as they come out onto the circuit here. This man, though, is approximately 3/4 of a mile ahead of the peloton, and he's riding now with all the confidence you require. He's won 7 races in his life. Not a huge honours list for a rider who's been a pro since 1996. But when you're a professional, you don't just ride races to win them. You ride races to help your teammates win them as well. He's been much more a helper than a winner himself. But today, he is ridden with terrific confidence.
Like all Italians dreaming of a stage win in the Giro, he got that way back in 2001, and still a solid performer. Toyota United on the front. There's Ivan Stevic. He's in the white jersey there, but he is a teammate of the men in the red, white, and blue jerseys.
Just looking at the tyre splits, Bob, it looks like 2 of the riders have been swept up now from that original group of 5, so there's only 3 riders in front of the Toyota United-led peloton. They'll be smarting a bit today. They really should have launched this chase and given Discovery Channel a much more stronger pull out on the course before they got to the circuits, because they're paying the price now. They've totally misjudged the strength of this breakaway. as we've got the two Navigators boys here. But I think it's all going to come a little bit too late. Ben Day is at the back, and Doug Olrenshaw. And in the distance, right in the distance, a very lonely road, a very wide road, and that is Daniela Contrini. That's a winning gap for sure.
That is Contrini off the front. These two riders haven't given up. Ben Day and Doug Olrenshaw trying to close the gap down. They're about 20 seconds behind. They got to get there before the climbing starts on this last lap of the circuit. This is a very tall order for the two men that have been on the break. They're chasing Ben Day from the Navigator squad. His teammate, Victor Rapinski, doing a lot of work throughout the day. And there's Doug Olrenshaw from the HealthNet squad. So two domestic teams against one man from the Tinkoff team from Europe. This is an incredible battle in the streets of Macon. We thought it was going to be a field sprint, but it's not turning out that way today. What a hard day it's been in the crosswinds throughout today's stage.
Yes, Olrenshaw here on his HealthNet Maxis squad. Very similar colours, I must say. I just called him both Navigators. That was a mistake. Navigators coming back off a European campaign as well. They're trying to work together. It's hard to tell from the camera whether they are closing him down, but I think he's holding his own here. But what is for sure now, the peloton behind are closing in. It's going to be close, and they're going to sweat a little bit, but I don't think they'll get caught.
Onto the cobbled streets up this last climb of the day. That is Contrini starting to really struggle now. But look at our two chasers feeling the full effect of a day out on the breakaway. The peloton just starting to charge hard right behind these riders.
Over the cobblestones here, a little bit of a taster. This is a most beautiful course. All of the dangers of the course, if you want to win the race, are coming in a couple of days when we get down to Brasstown Bald, and of course the time trial, which this year will finish on top of Lookout Mountain above Tennessee. That is going to be two very decisive days of cycling for sure. Today, though, the first man home will get the race leader's jersey, and it looks like it could be a glorious result for Contrini here. Little bit of an effort. Doug Olrenshaw looking over his shoulder, never a good sign. It means that they know now they're not going to catch the boy up front. They want to make sure they don't get swept up from behind.
Once you start looking behind, then the breakaway is usually gone, and what you're trying to do is just keep your position out on the road. Ben Day rotating through there over the top of the climb, and you can see Contrini just vanishing into the distance there. They still have him in sight. There's still a chance for the chasers.
And here comes the big bunch, being led again by Toyota United here, and they are riding now, believe me. Of course, they're thinking of Ivan Dominguez, who is their Cuban rider, who is a superb sprinter. We heard from him at the beginning of the race, and he'll be smarting now. He really wanted to get on terms here, and he's not going to be. And the third man down in the line there too is one of the riders from Toyota who's wearing the colours of the champion of Serbia, and that is Stevic.
Here's Contrini up the road. He's going to get a stage win here. He's saying hi to the car. He's just got a few more pedal strokes before the finish line for a great win for himself. It's been a while, Tour of Switzerland, and it's a great result for the Tinkoff squad coming to race for the first time in North America.
There's never a nicer moment than when you're winning a bike race, and I would think particularly nice today. First ever for his Tinkoff team here in the United States, and the first one since his return back from injury in Milan-San Remo. And you may have not seen that crash on television with us. It was quite a nasty tumble in the peloton towards the closing stages down in Milan-San Remo. Well, there's the victory for him. A nice free wheel to the line now. That's the nicest moment. Not worrying about time gained, so I would say this is a man not thinking of winning the race by the end. He's got the first leg of it, though, and that means a race leader's jersey. Very small time bonus for crossing the line in first place, so he gets 10 seconds off his winner's time for the day. And just coming over in second place, 21 seconds down, Doug Olrenshaw. Ben Day will just about hang on for third here. He's gone over the line just about 5 or 6 seconds behind the HealthNet rider. Now, who's going to take out the sprint here? There's Day crossing the line, so he's in. Now, then it's going to slip back towards the field wide. Contrini doesn't care now who is going to get fourth place, because that's what they're racing for. And it's going to be Toyota United, I would think, who will try to take the line after the chase. But they didn't do so. It was rider Hajidal for HealthNet who got the fine fourth place. Dominguez being beaten in the sprint. He takes fifth place on the day. Now, Victor Rapinski, well, there's no doubt who the most aggressive rider of the day was. That was him. He was attacking all day. Overall then, it's always the same as the stage result on the first day. Contrini, Olrenshaw, Ben Day, and then Emil Abraham, because he won some sprints out on the course, gets 4th place. So day 1 is behind us. Next up, the longest stage of the race of 135 miles. We'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back, and the day has dawned beautiful here for the second stage of the Tour de Georgia, from Thomaston down to Rome, with a long day, 135 miles, but the storms weighed about don't seem to have arrived, and that's good news. That's David Miller up on the stand there, but let me introduce you now to Bill Todd, the president of the Georgia Cancer Coalition, the main beneficiaries of this race.
We're working on what we know about cancer, how much it can be prevented, and also what we don't know, why some people get cancer and it can't be detected early enough. And we send the money that we raise from the event to the laboratories to fund research to answer the questions about what we don't know.
Well, let's hope they raise plenty of money over the next, what is now 6 days of racing left in this race, Bob. A little bit of a surprise yesterday in Contrini, but a worthy winner in the end. The sprinters missing out. Maybe they'll make amends today.
They'll have another chance at it today on a pretty testing course, not mountainous by any stretch of the imagination. The longest stage of the Tour of Georgia, 135 miles. But the crosswinds that buffeted the peloton from yesterday have died down. You can see in the background there, very calm, perfect weather. Great racing conditions.
Well, it really is the most beautiful day, and the state of Georgia welcoming this race, don't forget, for a 5th year now. The total distance around 650 miles, but 135 of those miles going today. Glenn Chadwick of New Zealand here is in the breakaway at the early move. Gary Peltonen and Austin King. They're the boys who started the action today. You'll always get the riders who will never stay in that bunch, Bob. You were never one of those riders, I know, but these boys always want to get out and attack.
I stayed at the back of the bunch mostly.
And this is very typical of the state too. All of the schools know the race route. They bring everybody to the roadside and give a great atmosphere here. And this is the first Maxis sprint of the day, where there are small time bonuses for the first riders across the line. Should these riders stay away to the finish, those small time bonuses could decide the new race leader.
Garrett Peltonen there. I think getting that sprint right in front of the Navigators rider. Daniele Contrini, he's in the leader's jersey after an incredible performance. Fantastic racing on yesterday, the day before stage. So there's your race leader, and his team will have a bit of work to do to keep him in that jersey. I don't think that he's planning to keep it throughout the race. Not a pure climber, not to the caliber of riders like Levi Leipheimer. And when we get to the Brasstown Bald stage, you know that there's going to be some huge climbing and attacking, and there is none other than Tyler Hamilton, gold medalist in the time trial event at the Athens game, and a little controversy in his career in the last couple of years, but he's back out racing in North America.
Yes, and if the rumour is true, he's actually in a little bit of difficulty in this race because he's got a root canal problem on one of his teeth, and he's in quite a lot of pain. So let's hope, because once you start climbing the mountains like Brasstown Bald and the old blood starts pumping around the system, that's going to be very, very painful. Now there's Austin King's trying to stretch them out here now. Glenn Chadwick, he's an old hand at cycling, is Glenn. I've seen him race everywhere in the world, I think, and now he's settling down with his team here in the United States. But he's having none of that. Austin King wants to liven things up a little bit. Chadwick takes his back wheel.
Navigators very aggressive yesterday's, the day before stage, as well as this stage right here, stage number 2. And it's Glenn Chadwick's turn from the Navigator squad to find the breakaway. Austin King, that acceleration may be unhinging the other rider in the breakaway a little bit. Peltonen just off the back now, and Glenn Chadwick not pulling through. When a rider attacks you, it always takes a little bit of time to recover, get your wits back, and here's a sprint. Number 2 sprint on the day, and yes. Chadwick is going to take that rather handily.
This is in Rockmart now, as the ride's completing 108 of the miles, 30 miles to go, and they've done pretty well to hold them off, because we were clear at Newnan as well, don't forget, we saw the earlier sprint, that was only 45 miles in. So 122, that's his position at the start of the day. At the moment, he's likely enough up amongst the race leaders on the road. He's regained most of his lost time. Now, is Peltonen? No, he wasn't in sight there. Now, he's dropped away from the action. Here's the peloton, 2:32. So just for the moment at least, Glenn Chadwick is the leader on the road for the Contrini's yellow jersey, but I think they might have something to say about this. Interesting finish in Rome. It's a popular finishing town with the Tour de Georgia, Bob. Every year we've come here, and I remember Ivan Popovic winning here.
Yaroslav Popovich winning
Yes, Yaroslav Popovich, sorry, yes.
And that was a very handy ride by Popovich. But it's a very prestigious town, Rome. Floyd Landis winning, and none other than Lance Armstrong also winning on the streets of Rome in Georgia.
That's
Chadwick here opening up a little bit of daylight on this little climb, so we'll see. They've already gotten rid of Peltonen, so King having a hard time following the wheel of Glenn Chadwick there. Very handy professional from way down under, races throughout the year. He has settled in nicely with the Navigator squad. Wondering what's happening to the riders that used to be with him. He's maybe a little bit too strong for him.
Well, anybody that's never been to Georgia might be forgiven for thinking this state is flat. It most certainly is not. It's a most beautiful state. It's heavily wooded, and some 3 hours out of Atlanta you are in the mountains up by the Tennessee borders, and that's where the race is bound. You'll see the big mountains later. But right now these are the sort of drags that once you've been on the attack for a long time, trying to maintain 25 to 27 miles an hour, these really snap at the legs. And it looks to me at the moment as though Glenn Chadwick, who is a recognised climber, very strong climber, is trying to get away on his own. But look out, here come the cavalry, Bob. And again, Toyota United are in the mix.
Hoping for Ivan Dominguez to win a stage, and there is CSC coming through also. So CSC coming to the front now, and they bring a very strong squad to the Tour of Georgia. Very important for the American teams on that Pro Tour team, including Christian Vande Velde, of course. Here is Glenn Chadwick leading stage 2. He's gotten rid of the 2 breakaway companions. That was Austin King as well as the other rider, Garrett Peltonen. So they've been dropped, and now it's Chadwick. Kind of a lonely road all the way to Rome, but he is proving to be way stronger than the other 2 riders in the breakaway with him. Look at the strain on his face now, gritting his teeth, trying to get to Rome before the charge of the peloton. I think he's going to have a very hard time holding them off.
Well, Chadwick's had a great day out so far. He's won both of the Maxis sprints along the way, so that's put him in the lead in that competition. And just look now at this demonstration of great team riding here by Toyota United. As the riders start to come back into the group, this is going to be possibly the first bunch sprint after 2 days of racing. I think Toyota United are beginning to lick their lips. Still a little bit of work to be done here as they sweep up the breakaways. This is Austin King. He's now back in the pack, but they're not all back yet. And don't forget, tomorrow on Versus, it's Cyclism Sundays. After 600 strenuous miles and 7 demanding days, the world's best will cross the finishing line at the Tour of Georgia. Plus, we're in Belgium for the prestigious World Cup event, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It all starts tomorrow at 5. We'll be seeing Valverde, Schleck, Cunego, Rebellin and De Luca in action in Belgium. And who will win the Tour of Georgia? Find out tomorrow. Welcome back as the Tour de Georgia has entered the city of Rome, and believe me, only one man now is spoiling the day for the sprinters, and there he is, Glenn Chadwick, doing the ride of his life.
Glenn Chadwick, very courageous, holding off the peloton so far. He's gotten to the streets of Rome. This will be the finishing town. He's just got a little bit over a minute lead now. He might need a bit more than that to stay away, but a great ride on a really tough day by Glenn Chadwick. There's the peloton.
Whoa.
You can see it looks like the HealthNet team has come to the front now, and they are doing a big turn of work.
You could say that, Bob, yeah. Just look, everyone is the same team. They're really driving this race on. But, you know, this is a rather cruel circuit because we have Clock Tower Hill, which is only rated a lowly 4th category, but at this stage of the race, it is very, very difficult. And I think Chadwick is trying to just stay out front here and grab an early lead in the King of the Mountains competition.
Very steep little climb just before the sweep down to the finishing, and that has made a big difference in this stage before, including a great win by Lance Armstrong a few years ago.
Well, this is Glenn Chadwick, and if he looks over his shoulder, it's not going to be good news, and he's not going to earn the points in the United Community Bank King of the Mountains competition because they're going to have him before the short climb. They're right there, Bob. They've shut it down.
It's one thing to get caught on a climb. It's another thing entirely to get caught right at the base of a climb. Usually what happens, you go right straight to the back of the field, and it being led by the HealthNet squad, so they have some real ambition on this stage. The domestic team's doing a great job on today's stage so far. Toyota United, they were doing the tempo throughout the day, and now it's the HealthNet squad coming to the front, doing the tempo just to the base of the hill.
Well, HealthNet are trying to get something out of this now, and well they might here, because they are a strong team in the United States, and they won't take kindly to other teams intruding on what they often see as their roads, their ground, their championships. And they've got to the front now, and it's all together. So other riders are going to start to slip away off the back now. This is quite a difficult circuit. We plunge down here over Clock Tower Hill, and eventually we'll swing around to the finish.
There is a bit of a... Oh, my goodness, going way too fast. They're trying to close the gap back to the front. 2 riders going down hard. That's one of the Health Net men, and riders all over the field right there. That looks to be Emil Abraham. He was doing well on GC, and here is another rider from BMC down really hard there, going right down into the pavement. What a tough little happenstance there.
Well, Abraham, that's a real shame for him. But under the kilometre flag here now, nobody's going to wait for anybody at this stage of the race, as Toyota United are driving on as well here, and it looks as though they may have worked this tactic out right, because there's an attack, and that is Ivan Stevic who's gone. He's the champion of Serbia, and up over the hill there, he's kept it going, and he's got a little gap that could prove the difference here. He hit them at exactly the right moment. He's left himself about 800 metres to go to the line, but he's launched off from behind. A terrific lead out from a teammate there, and I think this is going to be a dream finish for Toyota United. Wow, if that's it, they're just back of the motorbike. As he comes around the bend, they're reorganising themselves there. I can see that Freddy Rodriguez and JJ Haido are kicking themselves and trying to make a little bit of matters to rights here. Also, the riders are in there too from Slipstream. Bob, it was a brilliant move. He hit him when it hurt, and they never recovered, because he's got the victory here. And this is an early win for Toyota United. It'll do nothing, I don't think, to the overall classification, but Stevic has taken the day's win, and snapping at his heels was JJ Haido.
And there's Freddy Rodriguez. They will be kicking themselves for letting that tiny little gap go on the climb to Stevic. He carried that all the way to the finish. Great ride by the whole squad from Toyota United. And here is that crash. Ian McKissick, he's the one that went down with the rider from the other teams on that very tough, dangerous finishing circuit. He'll get up, he'll get to the finish line and fight another day, but what a great win by Ivan Stevic.
Yes, that's always sad when you make a mistake like that, but there's nothing you can do about it. They'll finish at the rear of the peloton. They will be given the same time as the winners because of special race rules in the last 3 kilometres. There's George Hincapie just going through camera on the right. Remember, it's his first race back after his crash. Ivan Stevic getting a rare win, but a great win. The champion of Serbia leading it home for Toyota United. JJ Haido will be kicking himself in second place, as too will Freddy Rodriguez home in third. There he is in the colours of the champion of Serbia. I'm feeling very happy with himself, and I don't blame him. So there we are, kisses all round. Now, once he gets off that podium, let's hear what he's got to say about the stage win.
Everybody keeps saying you're a big talent, you're this, but I never did something big. And today I felt really good, and 40K to go. I said to Hank, listen guys, I just feel good. I know it's my day. And he told me, just be careful in the final 2 laps, follow everything, and if you have, just do it. If not, Ivan is there, Dominguez, and he's going to take it.
The Henk he was talking about was Henk Vogels, his big lead-out man from Australia. There's the overall situation. Contrini keeps the leader's jersey for a second day ahead of Olrenshaw, who was second also yesterday. So all smiles still for the Tinkoff Credit Systems Mark Ryder, as he keeps his overall lead as we now go into day number 3 as we head to Chattanooga in Tennessee. We'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back to the Tour de Georgia. Crucial day today. We're 2 days in. This is the start of day 3. Just the one leader so far, Daniela Contrini. Today it might well change. A little bit of entertainment as always at the start here in Rome. Great cycling town this, and they know their sport. Something I've never really done, Bob. How about you?
No, I think that would be straight to the emergency room if I tried that. Freestyle show for the fans, though, out in the from the Max's people. That's a nice little addition to the more traditional road racing here.
There we go. Everybody underway again. And this time they're facing climbs because at least 3 of them tickle 2,000 feet above sea level today. Let's have a look at the profile and show you what we mean. We start off with a little easy 4th category, just about 20 miles in. Then there's a bit of undulation before we get to the first 4th category there again at 65 miles in. Then they get higher. Now these climbs are reasonably shallow, but they do reach the heights, and then we plunge down to the finish, changing states today, albeit for a little while, as we drop down into Chattanooga in Tennessee, where we went a year ago.
Action straight away on today's stage. Here's your leaders. There's Danny Pate. He's doing a big breakaway. Richard England, Jackson Stewart, Trent Wilson, a lot of riders in the action right after the start of the stage, so very aggressive so far.
Well, they're showing no fear at all of what lies ahead on this route as we cross from Georgia into Tennessee. And these boys, you see the flick of the elbow there, that's the sign they want a little bit of help from the riders behind, because they want some momentum here, chance to get a bit of ground over the field. And you see the rider from Quick-Step there in Belgium really wants more people to come and start working.
Johnny Mearsman there asking his companions in this little breakaway to come through, do a little bit of work. You can't go all the way to the finish by yourself. You most certainly would never want to do that.
This big guy driving through here, Pavel Brut, he's having a great season here for Tinkoff. And he, of course, is on the team as Contrini and willing to race away. He's already run himself 2 races this year, one in Italy and one in Malaysia. Interesting move this, Bob, and it's gone very early. I'm just trying to see if there's a gap. Well, hardly. They're actually, although they're all racing flat out, they're going nowhere.
They're not gotten any farther off the front than when they started the stage. Kevin Sealdreher is the rider from Quick-Step there. Big star on the horizon for Belgium. He's a great little climber, and they are expecting big things out of him on the Quick-Step squad. There's yesterday's stage winner, Ivan Stevic. What a great win. Got to say something about the United squad. When the Pro Tour teams come over here, Toyota United seems to come up with the stage win. Tour of California, they got that with Ivan Dominguez, and now it was Stevic's turn to get a stage win in the Tour of Georgia. It's very prestigious for a domestic squad to beat the big guns at their own game.
Yes, and once you've done it, you've got the confidence to do it again. So he's going to be feeling pretty confident now. Well, they've wiped out that little breakaway, but we've got Jeff Lauder here and Zwinaski trying to get clear of the field. It looks as though that's a group behind. That isn't the whole field right now.
A small group, yes, dangling off the front of the peloton, presumably. And that is another breakaway away from that. Very aggressive stage so far, not waiting for the finish line at all, 115 miles further down the road. And that is a pretty big group coming across to our 2 leaders, and this might be something serious. And you can see riders just trying to get across, realizing perhaps this is a pretty dangerous moment in the bike race.
It's always difficult, especially in long-distance road racing, as to know when to make the move, because you keep thinking how far to go. You don't want to throw all your energy away. Not like the 2 dogs on the left, at least.
They know when to make their move.
As they ride the full length of the paddock there. But this is an interesting... You see, these undulations just snap at the legs as well. They make such a great cycle course. And what a beautiful state Georgia is. And there's another lone rider way in the distance. This is opening up a little bit of a gap here now. We'll try and catch up as to who's made the split in a moment. But we certainly have a big bunch of riders. Unusual formation.
Couple of Saunier Duval riders in the yellow jerseys there in the big group, and Quick-Step also. See a couple of the Discovery team also just tacked onto the back now, watching, waiting, seeing what's going to transpire for this breakaway. But big group, but detaching themselves from the front of the peloton now, and it seems as if a lot of the teams are represented, so maybe not so much of a big chase for the peloton, because each one of these guys will have a teammate up the road. Only the team that misses out will want to do the big tempo to bring them back.
That's a very good point, Bob, because we don't know how many teams have made the split, but they will. They'll know whether they got friends up there or not, and they're not going to chase down their teammates. So looking there at Craig Lewis, this is Tommy D, as we call him, Tom Danielson, a winner and a second place rider overall in this race in the years gone by, looking to go for it again. They say he's got good form. Now this is one stage where he won't want to make any mistakes because he's got a chance to gain time. Anyway, let's go to the leaders now. Jan Brakovic of Team Discovery has made this breakaway, so that's why Tommy D isn't chasing. Very important rider from Team Discovery in the breakaway. And you've seen one or two other big important names there. Christian van der Velde also up there. So I'm amazed, Bob, but there are some big names got into that breakaway. I am absolutely surprised the peloton didn't jump on it straight away. And look at the time gap, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. They better start moving. And we're back on the roads of Georgia, heading towards Tennessee, and this breakaway of 13 riders, including likely favourites here in Brakovic and Christian van der Velde, are making ground.
Kevin Sealdreher, Tim Johnson, Jeff Lauder, Tyler Wren, Lucas User from the Slipstream squad, one of the young teams from the United States, and Jackson Stewart on the new squad, BMC, kind of the remnants of the old Phonak team out on the streets, unroads of Georgia here. There's Tyler Wren from Colavita, and there's Kevin Sealdreher. Big things are hoped from this man. Pure climber, a little turn of speed he has, and he's a young rider, 20 years old, from Belgium, and big things are hoped from him. And here's one of America's best ever bike racers. Christian Vande Velde, he's pulling through there. He's been a great pro for a long time. Kieran Power also in the breakaway, and they're starting to gain time. There's Lucas User from that Slipstream squad, as well as David Cañada, one of the good climbers on the Saunier Duval Pro Deer squadron. So this is a high-powered breakaway. Yanni Brakovic as well for the Discovery team, and Johnny Mearsman representing for the team of Tommy Danielson and Levi Leipheimer, probably the hot favorites in the Tour of Georgia.
It's a very interesting mix of riders, this, with a lot of teams represented. Battagliati here, good sprinter. Rides a very cramped position on his bike there, but he certainly makes it effectively as they're now mixing it away. This is a very interesting move. We're waiting for a time check now. That'll be pretty interesting, but they've got on with the job in hand here. Clearly not afraid of the 3 high spots of the day which lie ahead of them as we head over the tops and then down into Chattanooga. Chattanooga itself sits at about 750 feet above sea level, but the rides themselves will top out at 2,000 before they drop down to the finishing line. And Christian Vande Velde, he's going to be feeling pretty happy with this manoeuvre.
Looking very smooth, Vande Velde is, very calm, and has been in this situation a lot. He had a great Tour de France last summer. We didn't get a lot of chances to see Christian doing a lot of work, and a bit of a disaster for Team CSC before the start of the Tour. Ivan Basso being asked not to start, but it was Christian Vande Velde that was consistently riding day in and day out in the Tour last year, made a real big name for himself, and now comes into the Tour of Georgia as one of our pre-race favorites. And I think they've done something very special to place him in this breakaway. Big break, and all the teams, all the big teams represented, and not a huge chase. Maybe this is the one team that got left out of that.
Look at
the gap, 11.5 minutes. So panic bells now going off for the team from Belgium in the pink jerseys, and that's the Lotto squad, and they're going to have to do something huge now, almost 12 minutes behind the breakaway. They've come to the front. They know that the GC is going to be gone if they don't close that gap down. They've got a long ways to go. It's going to be a very tough stage. If they would shut down the tempo right now, I don't think there would be any other team interested in chasing. You can see Discovery near the front as well as Quickstep, but they both have riders in the break, so they will not be doing any chasing at all. It's up to this squad right here, Predictor Lotto, to take that advantage and try to reduce it a little bit, or the Tour of Georgia is going to be history.
Well, Predictor Lotto here are taking the gauntlet up here. Meanwhile, let's have a little bit of entertainment. Here we are, King of the Mountains, the United Community Bank, as they're waiting for the riders to come through. Remember that we've gone over one climb today, and now as we continue to contest it here at the summit of this climb, who cares? Let's just enjoy the music, Bob.
I think the riders will not have any time at all to hear a nice little serenade on the side of the road. Good to see a band playing, and there is Christian Vande Velde just leading the other riders. You can see, I think that was Lucas User getting second place on that sprint for the Slipstream squad, and the 2 riders from Quickstep tapped onto the back. Yanni Brakovic, Johnny Mearsman following this man, Christian Vande Velde, Bertogliati, Power, Johnson, Lauder, Seal Drazers, Ivan Santoromita, and Tyler Wren and Scott Neidham there. This is a very important breakaway. We'll have to see what the peloton gap is, the time gap to the peloton at the top of this here, the second to last climb of the day.
Well, Jeff Lauder is the man getting an early lead in the King of the Mountains competition at the moment. He's the one taking them over the top of the climbs. Christian Vande Velde, can't believe he's looking a breakaway of this quality that's gaining huge time within 11 minutes, and David Cañada, he's another rider who could do very well today now, and is going to feel pretty content with the way things are going. They have got themselves into a breakaway here that I think will decide the day, and they're going to work at this now and try and hold it off. Look at that gap now, 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Look, are you sure that's right? Yes, I'm afraid it is, Mr. Simoni. That is Gilberto Simoni here, who is back in the peloton. And I think everybody's looking for Team Discovery Channel to come and start working, Bob. Well, they're not going to do it. Why should they? They're saying, well, your favourites are back here, Levi Leipheimer and Tommy Danielson. But what nobody seems to realise is that Brakovic in that breakaway is a terrifically talented bike rider.
He was a leader of the Tour of Spain in his first Grand Tour just last year.
Exactly.
And Yanni Brakovic, world champion as well, formerly in the under-23 ranks. Big star of cycling. And I think that the Discovery team is very content to have him in this breakaway. Of course, Christian Vande Velde presents a big threat to them, but they're going to let Yanni Brakovic have a chance, have a go at it. He's a very good climber, so they got the Brasstown Bald stage upcoming in a couple couple of days' time. The rest of the riders, including that man, David Cañada, they just need to go for the stage win, and they want to play their cards exactly right. Cañada starts today as the top man on GC in that breakaway. Look at that gap now, nearly 20 minutes behind, and they have given up. This is going to be a race for about 15th place, I think, on the stage. But more importantly, the GC is gone, I think, at this point, and that is a 20-minute gap now to the peloton.
That is absolutely tremendous bike riding, but the field behind are going to have to try and reduce this gap before the race rolls to a halt at the finish today. Let me remind you, though, many of these riders will be taking part in Italy's first Grand Tour, the Tour of Italy, or the Giro d'Italia, and it'll be right here on Versus and on the web. Sign up at Versus.com for exclusive commercial-free streaming video. Catch the Giro d'Italia on Versus every Cyclism Sunday, and it all begins on May the 12th. The biggest races from the sprint classes to the Tour de France are on Versus. For the leaders of the Tour de Georgia, well, they're lost in the woods. We are in double figures now with about 25 miles to race. There could be a surprise today. Well, we're back on the Tour de Georgia on stage 3 with what is turning out to be an amazing day, Bob. We're on the outskirts of Tennessee, and this breakaway is still clear. Gianni Meersman here in Discovery Channel. He's got his favoured teammate up front, Yanis Brejkovic, and he can't believe his ears here because they're talking telephone numbers for a time gap.
Telephone numbers indeed, over 20 minutes. And there's the team car. I think it's Ekimov driving. And Johan Brunel is also on the race route. Johnny Meersman there getting the instructions, telling him that the gap is huge. This is the GC. Also, the stage win is up for grabs. So Discovery hasn't done a lot so far in the Tour of Georgia. They need to start ramping it up, and they got two great guys. Maybe the fastest man in the break is Johnny Meersman there, a big winner in Belgium during his amateur days.
Yeah.
And, of course, Yanni Brajkovic, a big GC rider in the Grand Tours over in Europe. See what he can do with a 30-minute advantage now, the peloton closing in on giving this race away to the breakaway on GC at this point.
Well, he's come up behind Colavita's Tyler Wren there, and just look at that gap, 22 minutes and 20 seconds. Anthony Colby taking a good look at that. Boy, the breakaway has read it right today. Now, you can race for 10 years and never make such a move as this, Bob, and these boys have got it heading down to Tennessee.
2.5 miles slower, and the Kents saluting the Tour of Georgia here.
It's a big family.
Having a little bit of a problem with their banner there. But here is the field coming through, and no chase so far. 22.5 minutes to our leaders, a group of 13 up the road.
Well, I know the weather's come out a lot better than was anticipated for this week's Tour of Georgia, but it wasn't a great day to take time out. The King of the Mountains here at Buckhalter Gap now, as it continues to be a great day for Jeff Lauder. Early on he was scoring, now he's giving best to others in the breakaway. Rubens Battagliati gritting his teeth because they've got a race of their own here now. They know they're racing not only for the stage win, they are racing for the final victory in this race when we get down to Atlanta at the end of the week. There's nobody behind is going to close that gap over the next few days.
No, impossible right now. And this is the riders in the front will know that. Kevin Seeldrayer is there trying to stay on the wheel of Rubens Bertogliati. And Christian Vande just doing a little tempo from the rest of the breakaway back to our two leaders. Here's a sprint for the King of the Mountain. Looks like Seeldrayer is going to just detach himself off from the front a little bit and putting in a huge effort now to attacking for the King of the Mountain points, sweeping descent into the finish in Chattanooga, and we'll see what the time gap is to the peloton when they get to this hill. A little bit of breakup now in the breakaway, and it's Seeldrayer's leading Bertogliati over the King of the Mountain points. 25 kilometers to go to the finish, and a little sprint for the KOM points.
That's it, 103 miles ridden now of the race today, which is 118, so there's 15 miles to race or so down to the finish. And Kevin Seeldrayer of Quick Step heading up Battagliati. And you can see these hills hurt a little bit here. They are quite steep, and these riders have got to feel tired. It wasn't a long breakaway for them. It didn't get away straight away. There was a lot of flurries of activity before they finally got 13 riders clear. There's no longer 13 riders here, by the way. One or two have been left behind on the drags taking us into Tennessee. But these long roads are only going to help the breakaway now because it'll discourage the main field. They know this race has been lost today, and big favourites like Leipheimer and indeed Tommy D are going to think, well, what might have been. they're not going to worry too much. 26 minutes and 37 seconds. Contrini wants the leader for 2 days. That's long since gone now, I'm afraid, Daniela. When you lose the lead, you lose it rather spectacularly, I think.
Contrini now 26 and a half minutes behind the leaders up here, and I don't think he came to the Tour of Georgia with any illusions of winning the overall, so didn't put his riders on the front to control the tempo. Even though he probably could have kept the jersey for a couple of more days, I think he felt he would lose it anyhow at the Brasstown Bald climb. Yanni Brockovich there in the middle of the breakaway. The riders still rotating regularly. Christian Vande Velde on the front now. He'll just take his turn. Johnny Mearsman. But I don't think, honestly, Contrini came to the Tour of Georgia with big hopes of winning the overall, so let this breakaway get as much time as they wanted. He's had his day in the sun. He won a stage and got to spend 2 days in the leader's jersey. So Contrini, not too disappointed to lose the lead, but it's 20Ks to go, and the gap is gigantic, closing in on half an hour.
20k or 12 miles to race, and the winner of the Tour de Georgia can reckon he's in this front group. A couple of riders trying to slip away here. Well, Cañada, Vande Velde, Brajkovic, they're the names that we'll be talking about as the likely final winners of this race, but there'll be a good sprinkling of American riders who will feel they too having a chance now. Over the top of that last climb at Bergholter, Battagliati and the Seal Dryers trying to open up a little bit of a gap. And this is the way to do it now. They're only racing against the front group. Forget who's coming up behind. There's a face for you, Bob.
Bertogliati really putting in a huge effort now, and you can see the struggle on his face. Seal Dryers and he just over the top at the King of the Mountain and just in front of the chasers who should be coming up handily behind. There's 2 riders from Discovery Team. They will not let a little group get away, but it's not that far to the finish line, and they know that if they can reduce the numbers from 13 to 2, the chances are much better. It goes up from 1 in about 10 to 1 in 2 chances to win. So when you reduce the numbers in a breakaway, your chances become better of winning the stage. I think that's what Seal Dryers and Bertogliati are trying to do right now, but I don't think the chasers will have too much of that.
Well, Battagliati here, he hasn't won a race since March 2002, but he did win a stage of the Tour de France that year too, July that year rather, in Luxembourg. He caught the sprinters at their own game and they didn't know who he was, and he finished up leading the Tour de France for a couple of days, pulling on the treasured maillot jaune. Well, he's in the breakaway, and so too is Janis Brajkovic, confirming his progress in the world of professional cycling. Kieran Power, champion of Ireland, also in this breakaway, based here in the United States. You can see that those 13 riders, though, have thinned themselves down. We've got 3, 6 or 7 riders here. So 1 or 2 have paid the price. They should stay away from the main field even so, because the gap is big enough. But these boys are racing for the day's win and the final win right now.
Johnny Mearsman there coming to the front, Discovery Team, new professional, and there's his teammate Yanni Brockovich, who made a spectacular Vuelta a España at the end of last season, under 23 world time trial champion. So with the stages to come, his chances are looking better and better. He's a great climber and obviously a very handy time trialist. Jeff Lauder, Kieran Power, navigators very aggressive throughout every stage of the Tour of Georgia, and eventually they're going to get a stage win. That's how you win big bike races.
So Kieran Power then, the 13th in the Olympic Games road race, is in the breakaway. Everything to race for. We'll take a break. We're out of Georgia. We're on the streets of Chattanooga, heading downtown now in Tennessee, and these 2 riders still just ahead of the field. Rubens Battagliati from Switzerland and Sonia Duval and Kevin Seal Dryers. He's a Belgian rider on the Quick-Step team, just 6 miles from the finish. The only worry they have is the small group behind, because the main field is looking to be nearly half an hour back.
The main field way behind, so the stage win and probably the GC gone for the field in the Tour of Georgia. But for these 2 riders, the stage win is definitely up for grabs, and who knows what the GC will be after today's stage. It will be very different than from the start, though. There's Kevin Seal Dryers, one of the young pros on the Quick Step squad, one of the best climbers out of everybody in Belgium now, and that's saying something. Struggling now, trying to get to the finish line ahead of very fast finishers who are in that breakaway, including Christian Vande Velde and Johnny Mearsman. You got to give him a chance for the stage win, a very fast sprinter.
I'm just thinking here, Bob, every time I look at the camera, Battagliati is not helping Seal Dryers here, and I think the answer is he wants the group behind to catch up, because if it comes back together again, then his teammate David Cañada will be the leader of the Tour. and that would make them in a very strong position with the main peloton. Look at this, 28 minutes 41 seconds behind at the moment. It's all over because Team Discovery Channel aren't going to chase. Why should they? Because they've got Brakovic up in that leading group.
Well, Freddie Rodriguez will be worried a little bit about this. One more opportunity to win a stage has been gone now.
Yep.
He had a good chance at the start of the stage on the profile to win the stage here. That will not happen today, nor will it happen for Big George Hincapie just in front of Freddie Rodriguez. Here's our two leaders just a few Ks ago, and here is the chase. That is being led by Van de Velde, Brakovic, Cañada there, as well as Johnny Mearsman just sitting on the wheels now, saving his legs for the sprint. Jeff Lauder also in for a chance of the stage win.
Lauder's had a great day out. He took the first two mountain climbs today. He's in the breakaway, of course. And there's an attack coming up on the outside now as they run down in towards the finish. There's the list of the leaders. The three men I think gaining most are Cañada, Van der Velde and Brakovic. They are the big favourites for the Tour now, and there's going to be a little infighting amongst them. Jeff Lauder will be thinking perhaps more of going for the stage win.
Jeff Lauder now just right on the front there. He's only got a couple of corners before the finish line. He's making a bid for the win. Great move by Lauder, and this would be a huge result. 3 Ks to go for the Health Net squad. There's Yanni Brakovic. He's in the group with Jackson Stewart there from BMC, and they're just behind Jeff Lauder. Yanni Brakovic from the Discovery team looking around, seeing where his teammate Johnny Mearsman is. Maybe this man will be the spoiler, control all of the attacks for his teammate. They know that Johnny Mearsman, if he gets near the finish line, has a great chance to win the stage. A very fast sprinter.
Well, there's no doubt now that Yanis Brakovic here, he's under 25 rider, terrific talent, has now become the leader of Team Discovery Channel today with the hot favourites Leipheimer and Danielson trapped in that main field almost half an hour back. So he's going to have to carry the weight of the team now, because the winner of the Tour is certain to come from this group, as they're also confused now as they think about the stage victory as well. There's Jeff Lauder, I think, being brought back here. Big effort now by Brakovic, and just behind him near us is Johnny Mearsman. He's the sprinter if they can get it back together. He's never won a race as a pro yet.
Bertogliati now closing the gap down to Brakovic. Mearsman has to play his cards just right here. Seal Dreyer's on the wheel. That's Christian Van de Velde on the CSC team. He might take a dig for the stage win as well.
Well, as they head up towards the finish now, who's going to come into our camera first? Because they're all together again for the sprint. The remnants of a 30-man breakaway that's turned this race upside down. A huge effort for the line now as Navigators try to take it out, but it's going to be a great win indeed. That is Johnny Mearsman, who wins his first ever bike race as a professional. Johan Brunel certainly knows how to pick the men on his squad. But more importantly, of course, Cañada's finished in that group, Bob, and he will be the new race leader.
David Cañada will take over the race lead from Daniele Contrini. Big congratulations between Mearsman and Yanni Brakovic. They did a great team effort. Brakovic controlling the breakaways at the finish line and the attacks, giving his teammate Mearsman a chance to win the stage. Great win for the Discovery team, and they've stamped their authority on this race, and they have a good man for the GC in Brakovic.
Well, it's always nice to get your first pro win. He's won plenty of races as an amateur. Johnny Mearsman, who's been a former champion, junior pursuit champion. Indeed, as the main field come in now, the clock isn't far off half an hour here, so they've really lost their grip on this race today. As over the line comes Nicky Reisted there, I think it was, of the national team, who leads the bunch in, and they're just on half an hour behind. The clock's still ticking towards 30 minutes. Whichever way you look at it, that is an enormous time gap, the likes of which you very rarely see in racing at this level. And you can bet your life now the winner of this Tour will come from that leading group. And certainly Daniel Contrini won't be the leader of this race at all again this week. Let's go to Johnny Mearsman and see what he thinks about his first win.
It's like a dream come true, really. It's my first year. It's my 14th race or something, and it's really special.
And there it is, he wins by a single second over David Cañada, now the new leader. Brakovic is third, Van der Velde fourth, and Seal Dreyer's in fifth. Cañada is the man. Here he is speaking in Spanish about his leadership.
No lo sé, cuando uno está en forma, sí.
I'm not sure. When I'm in shape, yes, but right now I'm in okay form. But the only reason I have the leader's jersey is because of the breakaway. I think there are riders here that are much stronger than me.
And so the overall, he's only got 3 seconds over Battagliati, his teammate, remember, Van der Velde at 3 seconds and Brakovic at 3 seconds. They must now be the favourites, along with Jeff Lauder of Health Net, presented by Maxxis. But Sonia Duval are the new leaders of the Tour de Georgia, and boy, over anybody else, they can look back at nearly half an hour. We'll take a Welcome back. Blue skies above us. We have now moved down to Chickamauga, which played its part in the Civil War big time, as we look at the start now of a former world time trial champion in David Miller, who's known the ups and downs of cycling over the years, but now seems to be enjoying racing once again. Big thing expected from David today.
Great comeback to the sport after 2 years for an admitted doping violation, and won the time trial in the Volta a España last year. Here is our race route. Garmin bringing you this. This is the tough part of the time trial, the climb up to Lookout Mountain and the finish, and very testing course. Not a pure speed, not a lot of aerodynamics involved either on those climbs. It'll be interesting to see what kind of machines the riders use. 18 miles and a very, very tough time trial. Dominique Cornu, World Under-23 time trial champion last year and one of the big stars of Belgian cycling on the Predictor Lauder squad. He's got to be one of the big favorites. Almost had a day off yesterday because the pace in the peloton was so slow, losing a half an hour to our leaders. Here's Miller, winner of a Volta a España time trial in last year's Tour of Spain.
David Miller settling in now. Just to remind you, the course itself is over 18.9 miles. Now, it's a route that those that rode last year will remember well. It's just not quite as long. This time we finished right on top of Lookout Mountain instead of the twists and turns dropping down into Chattanooga, which one or two of the riders felt a little bit unnecessary and a little bit dangerous. But this selection means that the effort is full on right to the top of the mountain, because that's where the finishing line is. Dominique Cornu here, a very talented young cyclist. He's ridden a lot of time trials for Belgium, for the Belgian national team. Now he's getting his first chance as a pro this season.
Under 23 world time trial champion. A number of those type of athletes in the Tour of Georgia. Interestingly enough, Danny Pate won that title. So did Yanni Brakovic a few years ago. And this is the reigning under 23 time trial world champion. And here at the start line, one of the most poignant stories in the Tour of Georgia. Nathan O'Neill was reconning this course on the 13th of March and was involved in a horrific accident in the car out on the freeway. He's back and just barely getting enough time in the saddle to race the Tour of Georgia. We'll see how he can do in the time trial. First split of the day, David Miller going through 25-24. This is a man who studies this technique. It's very different from a road race. It's an individual effort against the clock, each man riding by himself, no aerodynamics, sitting in the slipstream of the peloton. You're out there on the road by yourself, and David Miller, one of the best in the business, very fluid, very smooth, perfectly aerodynamic. You can see that his elbows are tucked in just under his shoulders, and he's cutting through the wind like a razor blade. This is David Miller's specialty. He loves the time trial, and he's setting fast times out on the course so far today.
He's off with a good start of the season. He won the prologue in Paris-Nice, which is the big French race that starts here. He was beaten in the time trial in the 3 days of De Panne, which is not too far away from where he won in Paris-Nice. It's in Belgium. So he's feeling pretty good. He'll want to prove to himself. I think he's building up, because there's no doubt what his highlight will be this year. It'll be the start of the Tour de France in London over in Great Britain, because he'll be a big favourite to win that. Well, Cornu, surprisingly, has gone through there with a slightly quicker time than David Miller at the split, and that indicates to me that perhaps Miller isn't riding as well as he appears to be. As we now move back to the start, and this is David Zabriskie, the time trial champion of the US. So he'll want to do a great ride today. The hill may not favour him, Bob, at the finish.
Well, absolutely. The hill might make it tough for Dave Zabriskie to do what he does so well, the time trial. This man has got to be the most aerodynamic bike racer in the whole peloton. It's a thing of beauty to watch him do the time trials. Here's Levi Leipheimer, pre-race favorite for the Discovery team. He's in the start house. He missed out on yesterday's 30-minute breakaway advantage, so he'll want to do something in today's time trial to just keep himself in the headlines.
Well, last year we had the cannons starting with every rider there. I remember that, because they made me quite deaf as we move up the course now. And the best split time so far from Nathan O'Neill, as you said earlier. I'm amazed that Nathan has got himself back onto form. This man has broken just about every bone in his body, either in car accidents or bicycle races, and he keeps bouncing back. He's got the record of time trial championship wins in Australia. If memory serves me right, it's 7. It might be 8. Either way, he's won it more times far away than anybody else. Back to the next man, and that's a new time. That's the best split time we've seen so far. 24:52 for Zabriskie.
Dave Zabriskie, absolute poetry in motion, flashing past the scenery. He won't be worrying about that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get back to all the time trial action in the Tour of Georgia.
Day 4 on the men's time trial underway as we look here at Levi Leipheimer, now out on course, lying 21st overall. Look at the time gap, Bob, 21 minutes and 6 seconds. I guess we're watching two races today now. Somebody like Levi looking for the stage win, and somebody like Brajkovic or Cañada looking for the overall race win.
Yes, absolutely. That is the way the Tour of Georgia has unfolded this year. Normally what we would be speaking about is the GC battle between the favorites in the time trial as well, Levi Leipheimer. That's not the case, but he does want to have some honor getting a stage win eventually, and this is a great stage for him. Levi, a brand new rider, it seems like this year. He had a dominating performance in the Tour of California just a few weeks ago. He's been riding well in Europe in the meantime. He's back on the roads of Georgia to do something special in this race. He won't get a chance to do that on general classification for the overall, but he still could do something special on the stage, and he is setting some very fast times out there on the time trial course.
He's looking awesome out there at the moment as we switch back to the Australian champion here, Nathan O'Neill. Also won the Commonwealth Games, which is the European equivalent or the Commonwealth equivalent of the Pan American Games time trial, and he is in a tremendous form despite the fact that he had this horrendous car crash. Apparently, driving away from the press reception for this race, they were hit up behind and the car was cartwheeled, and the driver of the car behind never stopped, leaving these people, for all he knows, they could have been dead. It was an absolute disgrace, but he's come back and he looks as though he's got his good racing legs again. This is his home state. He lives in Georgia. He met his wife here as well. Back to Jeff Lauder now. He was one of the men who was in that race, so breakaway yesterday, only 3 seconds off yellow. It puts this to be a very important time trial for the man who leads in the King of the Mountains competition.
Jeff Lauder out on course now. Teammate Nathan O'Neill up the road setting very fast times. He'll have at least something to gauge from his team manager. Here's David Miller, 4th best time at the split now. He went through leading as he gets towards the finish line, but now that's slipped away, and I think it is Levi Leipheimer with the fastest time so far, and Dominique Cornu also setting some very fast times out on course. Jeff Lauder, one of now our favorites because of that big breakaway from yesterday, and here is the man of the hour for the Discovery team. He needs to do something special today. This is Yanni Brajkovic. Let's see, though, how much energy was expended in that long breakaway on yesterday's stage.
Exactly, and he's only young. He may not have the stamina for this high-speed ride today, but we'll find out because the pressure's really firmly on his shoulders now. Dominique Cornu, he went through that first split with the 3rd best time and is maintaining that, so he's still doing a great ride. The under-23 time trial champion. He is another man, well, dare I say, predicted to have a great future in the world of cycling as the years unfold. He's got plenty of time ahead of him. One thing's for sure, he can ride quickly. This is Battagliati in an unexpected 2nd place overall in this race now, with only his teammate to start behind him. Little smile to the crowd. He's been a stage winner in the Tour de France, and he's worn the yellow jersey in that race.
He has worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, the biggest bike race, and he would love to do that again. David Cañada, here is the split time. Absolutely flying. Levi Leipheimer is doing a great time trial. I was saying before, he's a new man, it seems like, this year. He's come back to the Discovery team. He raced for U.S. Postal a number of years ago, spent 5 years on European teams, including Rabobank and Gerolsteiner. He came back to the Discovery team. He was hired in the retirement of Lance Armstrong to be the leader in the Tour de France. They also hired Yvon Bossel. We'll see how that shakes out as the year goes on, as we get closer to the Tour. But this man right here, Levi Leipheimer, having a great season so far and doing a really good time trial, leading, and that's against the best men in the time trial, guys like Cornu and guys like David Miller. So Levi Leipheimer having a good day. Finally, something to crow about for Levi Leipheimer, losing almost half an hour on yesterday's stage.
Well, amazingly, he's got 25 seconds ahead of Dave Zabriskie, who was 2nd at that check. This should be the time to lead the race coming into the start house as David Miller hits the road. Best time, 46:32. We'll take a break. Welcome back, time trial day, and this is now David Zabriskie here, knowing at the split he is 25 seconds behind Levi Leipheimer. Everybody is on course. David Miller down at the finish has the best time so far, 46 minutes and 32 seconds.
David Miller leading all the time checks as he went through. Those times have been eclipsed, but of course Miller now in the finishing line. He has the fastest time, and he'll have a ways to wait before Dave Zabriskie gets to the line to see if he can go faster than Miller. Cornu out on course, and Levi Leipheimer setting the fastest intermediate time so far. Look at this position. If anybody in the audience fancies themselves as a time trialist, you can look to no better man to see exactly how to get the most aerodynamic position possible. Dave Zabriskie, the quickest man through the air in the professional peloton.
And although he's the American champion, we must not forget he was the silver medalist in the World Time Trial Championship last year. This man can show anybody how to ride what we always call the race of truth, but he's going to be a little bit shocked if he's been told that he's lost 25 seconds to Leipheimer out on course. The long, thin legs of Dominique Cornu. Take a note of this guy. We're going to see a lot of him over the next 10 years. Comes up to the line. He's bettered David Miller by 6 seconds, 46.32.
Fantastic ride by Cornu. Thought to be one of the inheritors of the Eddy Merckx crown for the Belgian riders. There's Christian Vande Velde. He's in the start house, and he is going to try to do something to get closer to the GC lead, the general classification lead of David Cañada. This is one of our favorites now as we get towards the finish of the Tour of Georgia. Levi Leipheimer, best time at the split, and that is 25 seconds faster than Dave Zabriskie, who should be coming to the finish line here pretty soon.
Just look at this man here, Levi Leipheimer. The road's empty ahead as he ploughs a very lone furrow here. Terrific roads yet again. This state, I'm sure, was built for cycle racing. It's a super state for that. And he's got into that praying mantis position. He's all crunched up, always looks terribly uncomfortable, yet it seems to be so effective. This is the rider who in February was on top form. He won the prologue and the time trial stage of the Tour de California, and now he's trying to take out the time trial stage here. But he won't take the race lead in this one, Bob, because he's lost too much time yesterday. He's looking only for a stage win right now.
Starts the stage almost a half an hour behind David Cañada on GC. Here's Jeff Lauder. He's got the King of the Mountain jersey. That's a little bit different than his teammates on the Health Net squad, but he's trying to power his time trial machine towards the finish line. 3 seconds behind our race leader, Cañada, at the start of the stage. He's a pretty handy time trialist himself, so he's brought himself into contention for the overall. I don't think anybody would have predicted that at the start of the Tour of Georgia, but that's because of the half an hour loss to the peloton from the breakaway on yesterday's stage.
Well, this is a whole new bike race now. A lot of riders have found themselves into a situation where they can win the Tour of Georgia. Here in the start house, the last man to start now is David Cañada. His teammate Bertogliati is up the road as Cañada now to a big cheer from the crowd here in Chickamauga as they now make their start. All out on the highway. Meanwhile, we switch back up the road here. Chance to look at Brakovic. Split time, 13th best time. That's not bad, you know. 25.56. He's not going to match with people like Leipheimer, but he's got an awful lot of time under his belt after yesterday's escape. He's only going to worry about the times of Cañada and Vande Velde and other riders like Jeff Lauder.
Absolutely, that's a good point. That's Brakovic, very handy time trialist himself, under 22 former world champion at this discipline, expending a tremendous amount of energy, extending the lead of the breakaway. Also, yesterday's stage, all about 30 minutes at final time at the end of the stage, but also doing a lot of work in the finale for his teammate Johnny Mearsman, who came up with the stage win for the Discovery Squad. Mearsman's first stage win. Brakovic will not win today's stage, but he might have a chance to get the leader's jersey.
Well, here's the arrival of the Australian champion now, Nathan O'Neill, and I think it's going to be the best time to date. It is 46 minutes and 9 seconds for O'Neill. He goes ahead of Cornu and David Miller. Let's go back out on course. We should pick up now Rubens Bertogliati. Here he is.
Bertogliati out on course after a great ride by Nathan O'Neill. What an incredible effort. Bertogliati, 25th best time. He's losing time not only to the stage leaders, but also to the other riders. Brakovic coming through there with 13th fastest. So Bertogliati showing some of the strain from the effort of being out on a breakaway that gained a half an hour on yesterday's stage. Sonio Duval riders fighting these men from the Discovery team. He has got the fastest split time, Levi Leipheimer. You can see why they have those outriggers on the handlebars, because some of these time trial courses become very technical, and if you were in the drops, in the aero bars all the time, it would be very tough to negotiate those corners. Levi Leipheimer, very smooth. He's worked very hard in the wind tunnel in the off-season to develop his position on the bike and get the maximum aerodynamic advantage that he can do, and Trek has worked extensively with him to do that. And this probably is the model of aerodynamic efficiency in the world today. Dave Zabriskie also having a very good ride.
But he still lost that 25 seconds at the check, and it looked to me as though Leipheimer's keeping up his advantage there. He could be winning this race by quite a big time. He certainly doesn't look as though he's in any sort of trouble. He's concentrating, and that's the big art of riding a time trial, is you shut your ears and your eyes to everything around you, and you get on with the job in hand, which is going at top revs all of the way to the line. And Dave Zabriskie here, probably riding, continuing on second place position just at the moment. He pulls himself right onto the rather uncomfortable nose of the saddle as he tries to keep that bike up around about 30 miles an hour.
That was Dave Zabriskie looking very aerodynamic out on the course. Here's one of the climbs on the course up to Lookout Mountain, and Christian Vande Velde coming through now. 4 seconds faster than Yanni Brockovich. So Vande Velde dragging himself now the virtual leader of the Tour of Georgia at the moment.
And that's what I think he might have expected here. That's a terrific ride by Christian Vande Velde. I know his dad John will be cheering him on, and that is for sure. As he climbs up Lookout Mountain here, it looks as though Vande Velde might well be the next leader of the Tour of Georgia. We'll know soon. We're back at the Tour of Georgia time trial. This is the American champion, David Zabriskie. It should be a new best time, this. He's been making the mark out on the course. He comes over and he's pounded Nathan O'Neill's time, 45.32. The first man, Bob, to break the 46 minutes.
Absolutely flying, storming ride by Zabriskie there. Just a little bit faster than the very fast Nathan O'Neill. Great ride by Zabriskie. It won't help him on GC, though. He starts the day half an hour behind. And this is one of the men that the battle within the battle. This is David Cañada, our leader at the start of the stage. Looks to be laboring really slow on this climb when you look at the progress of Vande Velde.
He's way behind Brackovic here, Bob. He's losing big time, and his check time is nothing like the young man from Slovenia. And it looks as though it's going to be a one-day wonder for David Cañada in this leader's jersey. And he could well be swinging the way of either Brackovic or Vande Velde. They were matching each other pedal for pedal, and they've yet to finish, of course. Well, Lookout Mountain, this is a cruel climb. Last year we went up and over and continued on. Today we finish right on the top.
This is Cañada really struggling in the time trial. Admitted at the end of yesterday's stage he wasn't on his best form. Even though he did have the leader's jersey, he wasn't hoping to keep it. And there is the time, quite a bit slower than the riders around him. Here is Leipheimer to the finish line.
And just look at the effort of Levi, unaccustomedly well down the field today. It's reverse order, but that's the best time. And I can't believe it, but he's beaten, in fact, Zabriskie by 41 seconds with that time. Incredible time.
Great ride by Levi, carrying the good form he started the season with at the Tour of California. Too bad that the 30 minutes went away to the group that this man was in yesterday for Levi Leipheimer, but Yanni Brockovich is a little bit slower than Vande Velde. Let's see what he can do in the finale of the time trial, but he is losing what would be the leader's jersey, Cañada, way down the road. He started with the race lead, but he's 2 minutes slower than this man, Yanni Brockovich, but Brockovich has got some work to do to close the gap to Christian Vande Velde.
Well, he would have expected a reasonable ride. He's got proven talent as a time trialist, but how much effort did he throw on the road yesterday? And remember, he's got the new responsibility now, because whether they wanted it or not, they now have Brackovic as the race and team leader of the Team Discovery Channel, because their two favourites can't bridge the gap they lost yesterday. Levi Leipheimer doing absolutely everything in his power. With all of the top time trialists in, I can't see anybody remotely catching Leipheimer now. That will surely be the winning time of the day, 44 minutes and 51 seconds. But look at this now. Christian Vande Velde is still hanging on here. He's to the good. He's the race leader on the road. He's got a whole lot advantage over Brackovic all the way to the line, and he'll be the next wearer of the yellow jersey.
Christian Vande Velde, a very good time trialist, a solid performer, year in and year out. He's a seasoned professional. He knows exactly what he needs to do. It might be a question in this time trial, however, how much energy was expended in that long breakaway from yesterday's stage. Vande Velde climbing very well. You can contrast his pedaling motion to that of Kenyatta. Kenyatta really struggling, and Vande Velde on decent form. Not against the stage winner, Levi Leipheimer, which will most certainly be the outcome at the end of the day, but for the leader's jersey and the overall title for the Tour of Georgia, Christian Vande Velde looking very good.
No, against Leipheimer, Christian Vande Velde is nowhere on the time today, but he's not worried about that. It's mano a mano now. His arch rival is Brajkovic. They are locked together, split by just 4 seconds. Meanwhile, down the finish, let's know what the time is that Vande Velde's got to beat. Brajkovic in 47.28. That's the time Vande Velde aims at. Welcome back. Well, Levi Leipheimer looks set to win the time trial here in Georgia, but who is going to win the race for the yellow jersey? David Cañada, look at the gap, 2:23 behind Christian Vande Velde. It's got to be Vande Velde or Brajkovic, but they are so close together on course, Bob.
Just 4 seconds separating Brajkovic and Vande Velde, but that man out of the frame. Here is Lauder coming to the finish line. Cañada really struggling. Let's see what Jeff Lauder can do. 36th best time, 49.48, so he'll lose quite a bit of time to Brajkovic himself.
Yes, he's lost 2 minutes 20 seconds there to Brajkovic, so that's put him down the list a little bit. This rider here must finish in 47.27 to take the overall lead. Brajkovic is in 47.28 throughout the ride. They have been split by 3 or 4 seconds, never any more than that. It's all a question of how well Vande Velde has come over the hill, because he's more or less racing for the line here now, and it's all flat-out effort. Well, Bob, what do you reckon?
Very twisting, serpentine finish. Very technical course. It's been a very tough time trial. And when you add that to the effort from yesterday, you can see that Bertogliatti really coming to the finish line with everything he's got. Maybe fancying to get the leader's jersey, but that's not going to happen. 26th, the best time, 48.50, way down on Brajkovic himself for Bertogliatti.
Yes, 1:22 behind Brajkovic for Bertogliatti, so he's also out of the hunt. He might still hold the top 3 or 4 position in the race, of course, but it's time that counts. 1 kilometre to go for Christian Vande Velde, the only man who can take the yellow jersey other than Brajkovic at the moment, judging by the midway splits.
This is Vande Velde now, just a few hundred meters before the finish line, doing everything he can do, all over that machine. Very twisting corners here before the finish line. Vande Velde very fast through there, looking good, looking strong. He has got some work to do to get to that time of Brajkovic for the overall lead of the Tour of Georgia.
Well, this is a great place to live, but it's a tough place to ride a time trial on all these twists and turns. You can't afford to make a mistake. 500 metres to go. Christian Vande Velde, I'm sure, will know, because he has a radio earpiece. The team car will have told him he is crossing his swords with just seconds to count, and it can go either way right now. The last time check we got, advantage Vande Velde by 4 seconds.
Vande Velde, and here is Cañada. He's trying to get to the finish line. He's a long ways down now. He will not keep the yellow jersey as race leader. That will go to either Vande Velde or Brajkovic, and Vande Velde just coming up to the finish line now.
You can see here that David Cañada on his Scott bike has slowed down a little bit on the mountain. It's jumped up and bit him, I think, because he really has felt the race today. And I would think also the pressure of being the somewhat surprise leader of the Tour de Georgia after that long escape yesterday. He's going out of the jersey. The only question remaining on the day is, where is it going? Vande Velde or Brajkovic? The day's winner will be Leipheimer, but will it be Vande Velde for the new leader of the race? As he comes up to the line, it's seconds that count, and it isn't. 47.40, 12 seconds behind Brajkovic. The youngster from Discovery Channel has reversed the course out there and has now got the lead of the Tour de Georgia. That is remarkable. Here comes Cañada now, and it's all a formality, this. The last man sweeping up what has been another extraordinary day's racing in the Tour de Georgia. 49.53 compared to Brajkovic's 47.28. He's not just out of yellow, he's well out of yellow.
Cañada giving congratulations to the stage winner, Levi Leipheimer, who had a great ride. The GC is gone. We caught up to Levi after a great stage win for the Discovery rider.
Yeah. You know, obviously today is a great day for us. We were counting on Yanni. He came through, and I felt great today. I really had a good day, and this was a great time trial. Really difficult, hard to find your rhythm, and you really had to know when to give it a gas and when to let off, and I felt good.
Well, Levi was on fire today. His winning time of 44.51, 41 seconds too good for the world champion silver medalist. Nathan O'Neill in third place. Brakovic is in 11th place, but he is now the new leader of the Tour for Discovery Channel.
It means a lot to me, especially here in the States, to be a leader of a big tour. It's amazing. This is my first yellow jersey, and hopefully not the last.
And so he leads by 12 seconds now. Christian van der Velde. Bertolioti slips down to third. Jeff Lauder still on a great ride here in fourth place. And David Cañada, the erstwhile leader, is down into fifth place. But as we conclude our first look at the Tour de Georgia here, it's now Janis Brakovic who is the man to beat over the next part of our programme. We'll come to you with the conclusion of the Tour de Georgia tomorrow as part of Cyclism Sundays, when we bring you the double header, the Tour de Georgia and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. We'll see you then. For Bob Rowell, I'm Phil Liggett. Goodbye till tomorrow. For 4 years, the Tour de Georgia has caught the imagination of the people of the Peach State. The race has coursed the most beautiful roads, which captured the feeling of well-being. And this year, the people of Georgia can enjoy an extra day as the race moves from a 6-day race to a 7-day race. Big names like Christian van der Velde are here. For the first 2 days of this year, the Italian Daniela Contrini was the first leader of the Tour, winning day 1, holding it on day 2, but on day 3, a long breakaway saw the lead switch to David Cañada. Levi Leipheimer, once the favourite, starts the time trial, but now the battle between two men. Ran Jakovic winning that battle. He is now the leader of the Tour de Georgia. Yes, and this morning the Tour de Georgia resumes. We're in blue skies here, nice and warm temperatures. We're in the town of Dalton. Welcome back to our coverage here on Versus of the Tour de Georgia, a race in its 5th year and presented by AT&T. I'm Phil Liggett, joined by Bob Rowell. Well, I hope you managed to catch up with our first 2-hour special on this race. We're now going to take you right through to the very end. And when we left you, there was a big change on the way because Jan Brakovic was the new leader of the race, and he still is this morning by 12 seconds. But Bob, the big talking point of the first few days of the race was that long breakaway that got almost an unprecedented half an hour on the field.
Absolutely. 29 minutes gap to the breakaway. That doesn't happen very often, but when you have the right combination of riders in the break and the other combination is in the field, if there's not a chase from the field, if each of the big teams has their star rider in the breakaway, the break is allowed to go. CSC had Van der Velde in the break. Of course, Discovery has Brakovic in the break. And Tinkoff, they had the jersey at the start of that big day, but I don't think they were really interested in the GC here at the Tour of Georgia.
No.
They let that breakaway go. The other teams didn't chase. And that we have now is a small group with a huge amount of time, but they are going to battle it out for the rest of the Tour of Georgia.
I think that's what it means too now, because there are probably 5 riders left in the overall classification who will really dream of winning this race. And today is the key day because we race to the top of Brasstown Bald. It's a famous part of this race over the 5 years, and usually the man that wins at the top is the winner. That may not be the case today because there'll be 5 riders watching each other. 12 seconds on Christian van der Velde, and Christian van der Velde came here as a race favourite. I think still is very much so.
I think absolutely. If he has a good day on Brasstown Bald, like he has had in the past on this climb, Christian van der Velde is still a contender. Yanni Brakovic, one of the best climbers in the business, one of the leanest men on the Discovery team, if you can imagine that, with riders like Alberto Contador, George Hincapie, and Levi Leipheimer. To be the leanest guy, that's saying a lot. So he's got to have some good climbing legs. They put a lot of energy into that breakaway, so it'll be a contest of wills as much as horsepower. It's going to be a great stage, and it's going to be a great Tour of Georgia all the way through.
All right, well, before we catch up on the latest edition of the Tour de Georgia with this stage today, let's have a look back at the story so far.
The race starting all the way back to Peachtree City and on to Macon. Here is the race route. Peachtree City down to Macon, Thomaston, the longest stage of the race, up to Rome, And then into Tennessee to Chattanooga. This is the time trial course. Chickamauga up to Lookout Mountain. Here's the hardest stage of the race to Brasstown Bald. Lake Lanier Islands to Stone Mountain. And the final stage in Atlanta.
And before we join the action for those last few days of racing to make up the 7 days, let's have a look back to the start and the first stage between Peachtree and Macon. There was a breakaway group of 5 got clear. Took a little bit of work before they finally got clear, but surprisingly they weren't brought back by the peloton. Contrini won the day and became the first leader of the race. He was back from injury in Milan San Remo. On the second day, the longest stage of 135 miles taking us up to Rome, a stage town which has seen every year of the Tour de Georgia. 3 riders getting clear and not deciding the day on this occasion. In the streets of Rome, Chadwick was swept up by the big bunch, and then came a huge surprise.
Great attack here by Ivan Stevic of the Toyota United squad just over the top of the very last climb, within sight of the finish line, and the sprinters could not catch Ivan Stevic. Great stage win for the domestic squad.
Onwards to stage number 3 from Rome to Chattanooga in Tennessee, 118 miles. A taste of hills here, but nobody expected the sort of breakaway which established. Look at that. They gained over 22 minutes. By the finish, it will be nearly 30 minutes as 13 riders shaped up this year's Tour de Georgia. Rubens Battagliato trying to get away on the final climb of the day, while the peloton had Contrini trapped in it. He was about to lose that leader's yellow jersey. When they got down to the finish, a first ever professional win for Gianni Meersman of the Discovery Channel team in his first season as a pro, but it will be David Cañada who would take over the race lead. It wasn't a lot in it amongst those men at the top of the overall classification, so the time trial was going to prove decisive for someone. Levi Leipheimer, starting as favourite for this race, was now simply racing for the time trial win, while Christian van der Velde was crossing swords with Brackovic. The man that won the time trial between the two of them will be the new leader of the Tour.
Yanni Brackovic, the best of the rest, not going for the stage win. This is David Cañada, really struggling on the time trial stage, losing over 2 minutes to Brackovic. Here's Levi Leipheimer hitting the bars there. Emphatic win in the time trial, clobbering everybody. But Yanni Brackovic, the rider from the breakaway that gained a half an hour on stage number 3, was just better than this man. 12 seconds faster than Christian van der Velde, and that is your GC battle.
That's exactly right. Bob van der Velde 12 seconds behind at the start of today's stage. Battagliati down to third at 1:22. Jeff Lauder fourth, and David Cañada from first down to fifth after that poor time trial. So the scene is now set for the Battle of Brasstown Bald, and this is a very, very steep climb indeed. The big man who hopes to do well, of course, is Christian van der Velde.
We have 12 seconds. I just have to go up the climb just as good as himself and stay within him for the whole climb. And then last kilometer, you could take. 12 seconds is really only like going to be 10 meters at that point in time because it's so steep. So, just going to take me being that little bit better.
Well, it's all about the last climb, Bob, and they're certainly going to go mano a mano, I'm sure, on that. We're now having 2 races in the Tour of Georgia. Again, the stage winner and who's going to lead the race by the end of the day. 12 seconds. Christian's right, isn't he? It's not much, and we're getting up to 4,500 feet. And what's that last kilometre? 25%?
It is absolutely grim. Here's Saul Raisin, local Dalton resident, in a bad crash in France last year. He's made a slow, steady recovery from that crash. He had a terrible head injury. He's a local hero here, and he's a big celebrity in the streets of Dalton every time they see him out for a ride.
And the great news is, on his website, he's just announced his engagement to David Zabisky's sister. Now, there's a turn-up for the book. Well done, Sol. This is the route. Not one to look at if you're a non-climber this year in the Tour of Georgia, because this is a tough one. Starts with a second category climb, finishes with the Giant itself, where there's always a huge number of spectators. As I say, up to 4,500 feet at the end of 105 miles of racing. Well, we're underway. It's showdown time again here as the peloton makes its way out of Dalton, bound for Brasstown Bald. Welcome back to the Tour de Georgia. We're on stage number 5, decision day in the mountains here, right up in the eastern corner of the state. And Yannick Brackovic is the leader of the Tour by a scant 12 seconds. He's going to watch Christian van der Velde all the way, but we're joining up now with the leaders of the day, 8 of them getting clear. This is the Maxis sprinted Elijah.
Michael Blautzun there on the back. Alexander Moose in that breakaway from the BMC squad. teammates with Floyd Landis last year in this race. Moose back on a new team, BMC. Here's the peloton. There's Yanni Brockovich looking good in that yellow and white jersey of race leader, and his teammates so very solid. When you have riders like Levi, Jason McCartney, Pavel Padernos, Brian Van Borg, and Big George Hincapie working with you, it's very tough to think that anything untoward would happen. There's Danny Pate, 20th, one of the top domestic pros, former under-23 world time trial champion himself, and you can see that on the rainbow bands on the jersey of that Slipstream team kit.
Yeah, well, he's in the breakaway at the moment and feeling pretty confident with the way things are going. It's a very strange breakaway. This, when he got away, there were some big names got into it, and all of a sudden they stopped racing, and the big names fell back to the main bunch, and the breakaway has now gone clear. It's the old rabbit in the hare situation. They're trying to get to the bottom of Brasstown Ball with a big enough lead to survive to the summit, but judging by the way the action has started now in the main field, that is going to be a very difficult achievement. Here we are on Wolfpen Gap here. Michael Blautzen, Hejadar, Zajcek, Ben Day, these are the leaders for you. The original 8, Alexander Moose, nice to see. He's found a good team and he loves racing here in the United States. Number 91 there is Anthony Colby of Colvita.
And there is Chris Baldwin, just slightly off the back. We're getting over the summit here. Ryder Hejadal is the rider from the Health Net squad, just going over the top of that climb, Wolfpen Gap, with one more climb to go. The other riders in the breakaway, including Alexander Muth. Michael Bladzoon second on that sprint, and they will be getting to the biggest difficulty of the day, the big climb up to Brasstown Bald in just a few kilometers. Here's the peloton. They have the David Kenyatta in their ranks, Saunier Duval, former race leader, and there he is just in front of the CSC squad. That's Christian Vandevelde. He has really got his work cut out for him today. He has to put 12 seconds into Yanni Brockovich on the final climb of the day. That might not be that big of a gap when you consider the steepness as far as meters go, but 12 seconds can be a long time when Brockovich is chasing you.
Well, as we look at the leaders here, just looking back at that chase group, Bob, with all of Saunier Duval driving the peloton to try and shut it down, I would say that Gilberto Simoni is planning an assault on Brasstown Bald, and he's been telling the team to catch up with this break as best as they can. Danny Pate setting the pace. Now this breakaway is starting to split up here. A little act of desperation. They're being closed down all of the time, but they still have a gap over the rest of the field. And the plan now is to try and get onto Brasstown without the big bunch around them. Alexander Moose is a pretty good climber here, former champion of Switzerland, as he looks likely now to make the lower slopes of Brasstown Bald. Once you swing left off the main highway, this climb gets a little bit tough.
It kicks straight up into the stratosphere, gains many thousands of feet in very short amount of time. Alexander Moose leaving his breakaway companions behind. A lot of times towards the end of a race, riders will start sitting on, not cooperating with the work to be done. 10Ks to go to the finish, most of that straight uphill. Brasstown Bald, one of the toughest, most feared climbs in all of North American bike racing. And Alexander Moose, fearless at the moment, going ahead of his breakaway companions to try to get a little bit of an advantage before the climb starts.
He's not a bad climber either, Moose. Probably remembers the day he held the King of the Mountains lead in the Giro d'Italia, only for a day, but he did it back in 2004. He can climb. He rides well in races like the Tour of Romandy in Switzerland. These are the short and sharp descents off Wolfpen Gap for the main field, and then they'll start the valley road, and then the steady uphill climb will take us back onto Brasstown Bald. Stunningly beautiful area around the world, this here, up in the west corner of the state of Georgia. And the riders will see it at its most angry very shortly. And Danny Pate here having a little bit of trouble. There's the left-hand turn, Bob. That's when the pain will really start. I think that's why Danny Pate has said, I'll just see how I get on from here on in.
I think I'll go at my own tempo. You guys have a good day. I'll see you at the finish line. Danny Pate pulling the plug, as it were. And there's a little bit of breakup in the breakaway, obviously. There's 3 riders here coming to the slopes together before the final climb of the day.
Well, originally there were 8. In the far distance, you can see dancing away in the red jersey, Alexander Moose. Then 3 riders chase, and Pate just a little bit behind. Meanwhile, at 2 minutes and 46 seconds, this is the main field, being led here by David Miller. And now trying to just ease the riders back into play. But I'm absolutely convinced now, and there he is, Gilberto Simoni, second from the left. He has a plan to attack on the climb. That's for sure now.
Tommy Danielson and Levi Leipheimer right on the shoulder of Yanni Brajkovic. That'll be a big battle to see if he can stay on the wheel of Christian Vande Velde. But for the stage, also Jittery Joe's getting in the action with Cesar Grajales. He's won this stage a couple of years ago against none other than Jens Voigt and Lance Armstrong. So he fancies his chances a bit as well, one would have to imagine.
And why not? There's a reminder about the 12-second difference for Christian. He's going to follow Brajkovic wherever he can. Up at the front here, Alexander Moos, the former Swiss road race champion, is setting the pace. Now, this man has the ability to go all of the way on Brasstown Bald. The last kilometre, of course, where there is a massive crowd, will prove decisive. We'll take a short break. And here on the 5th day of the Tour of Georgia, this is Gilberto Simoni. That's why his team has been working to keep him in touch with the leaders. They're not up with the leaders yet. They're still 2 minutes 12 ahead, Bob. But this is a warning sign from Simoni, a great climber.
Great climber. Simoni's won stages on the steepest mountains in all the Grand Tours. Gilberto Simoni, a fantastic climber, and he would love to stamp his authority on this, probably the hardest climb in all of domestic bike racing, the Brasstown Bald, Stage 5, Tour of Georgia.
Well, he's got company behind him. Tom Danielson and Levi Leipheimer aren't going to give a fellow Tour de France rider too much of the leeway here. The other riders are scrabbling to try and keep in contention. Grajales is there as well. But these lower slopes, a little bit more cat and mouse, I think, to see just what pans out. Up front, Michael Bladsen is the CSC rider here from Denmark. And Hijadol, switch of teams for him now as he rides up here. And he is also riding terrifically well for the Health Net squad. And then the Anthony Colby there for Colvita.
Great to see
Remember, around the
Colby.
corner, yes, it is good to see him, I agree. But around the corner, of course, is the lone leader.
Alexander Moos still leading. Anthony Colby there tacked onto the back of the wheel of Ryder Hagedal. Michael Blaudzun trying to chase Moos. Alexander Moos having a good day. Just over 2 minutes lead the last time we checked. Now that's down to 1:37 through this acceleration. Any other stage that would finish on the flats with a 2-minute lead with less than 10 Ks to go, it would be a foregone conclusion that the breakaway would survive. But this climb's so tough, the breakaway needs more like 10 minutes at that point in the bike race to stay away.
Well, I have to say, I've not seen Simoni look quite as sharp as this for a couple of years at this stage of the year. And it may be he's coming back to some good form. Just won one small race last year, though he did finish third, of course, in the Giro d'Italia. These are the three riders at the front here now, and Michael Blaudzun doing an awful lot of work here for Team CSC. This might soften the field up for his teammate, Christian Vande Velde. That's where the effort will be concentrated, back in the field. Vande Velde and Brajkovic, remember, are the two riders dicing this race out for final victory on Sunday. And Blaudzun here, well, he's a big man. He doesn't enjoy mountains too much. But I have to say he's doing a pretty good job on the climb of Brasstown Bald.
Hagedal in a little bit of trouble there, trying to follow the wheels of Blaudzun. Anthony Colby looking strong, just able to get around Hagedal and get back to the wheel of Blaudzun, but they're still chasing Alexander Moos. He was in the breakaway with them just before the bottom of this last climb. He did a little bit of an attack on the flats between Wolfpen Gap and the finishing climb of Brasstown Bald, and Moos still dangling off the front, and Hagedal struggling to get back, now starting to yo-yo in between the breakaway and between this group here. There's Vande Velde and Brajkovic. That is the race.
Exactly.
The overall battle for the yellow jersey. Brajkovic holding it and Vande Velde in his sights.
Well, Vande Velde knows he's got to open a gap of 12 seconds. He also knows this race hasn't started to climb yet, believe it or not. It's the last kilometre or so where the road rears up and bashes you on the nose. It is very, very steep. And if he's right, Vande Velde, if he can get about 10 or 15 metres over the man in yellow by the summit, he'll get enough time to take over that yellow jersey. These two are just going to be locked together, limpet-like, while the others are going to try and fight out the result of the day.
Brajkovic matching the accelerations. You can see him just really concentrated right on the shoulder blades of Christian Vande Velde. Here is Moos, 3 Ks to go. So the peloton, less than 1 kilometer separating them. Generally, that would be plenty of distance, but on this stage, it's so steep, so grisly to the finish line, you're going to need maybe 4 or 5 kilometers to stay away to the end. Moos, 3 Ks from the finish.
The voices of the woods shouting at Alexander Moos here, a Swiss rider on American soil, riding for his new BMC team. Is concentrating on what would be a terrific victory for him. The battle for the yellow jersey is behind here. Vande Velde still setting the pace. You won't expect Brajkovic to do any work. His job is to make sure that Vande Velde stays right there alongside him and his yellow jersey is safe. Terrific pacemaking being done here by Nathan O'Neill. This rider's come out with some great form for this race, despite the problems he had back in March with that car accident.
Terrible bad luck for Nathan O'Neill, doing some recon and some publicity for the race, involved in a terrible accident. He has incredible form, was third in the time trial, even in spite of those injuries suffered in that terrible car crash.
Well, I've never seen him climb so well, to be honest. And Alexander Moos here, suffering gently on the climb. Hate to remind him, it hasn't started yet. But when we get up into the car park towards the top of Brasstown Bald, we then will climb up to the observatory. The road to nowhere is very, very steep indeed. And as always, all the people of Georgia has turned out in their thousands. Alexander Moos continues. Oh, and there's two riders in the background. I think it's still the chasing group. Bobby hasn't actually ridden away from that group. He's sort of been pegged.
Blautzun and Colby keeping it close, keeping Moos in sight. I don't think that they've been able to reduce the gap, though.
No, that's true.
It's holding steady at about maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds. So Moos still struggling to the finish line. The peloton should be hot on his heels. Last time gap has come in underneath 1 minute time. But you never know if a rider is in the breakaway, saving energy. You never know. He might have enough left at the end. Here is our chase group. That's Danielson on second wheel of Gilberto Simoni and Levi Leipheimer hovering dangerously off of the back. They have dropped Van de Velde and they've dropped Brockovich. So those two riders will fight it out. But these men, perhaps for the stage, and there's the attack.
Well, you know what? I think they were just waiting to find out just how good is Simoni today. They've made him do all of the pacemaking from the bottom of the climb. And now with a little flick of the wheel, it's Levi Leipheimer who's taken this race onto a new level here. He must have lifted this race up by a couple of miles an hour on that climb, and it looks as though Simoni is now in trouble. Well, all of these riders know about another great race. It's called the Tour of Romandy, and that's the one that Alexander Moos himself has excelled in. You can watch the latest edition with us next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be in Switzerland for the hard-fought race around Switzerland, the Tour de Romandy, and that's the race that turns the breathtaking Alps into a grueling climb to the finish. Who will survive for the next week's Giro d'Italia? Find out with us here on Versus. That's next Sunday, 5 Eastern. And this now is Levi Leipheimer as he tries to move clear of Simoni, and it's taking a little bit of an effort, but he's made the right move, I think. He's set himself a target now, and that is to wipe out the breakaway and win for the second day in succession. The high spot of this year's Tour de Georgia, it's heading up to 4,500 feet on Brasstown Bald, and Alexander Moos is still there. But coming up, Bob, is Levi Leipheimer.
Levi Leipheimer putting in a scintillating attack on Gilberto Simoni, opening up clear daylight immediately. We don't know exactly where Levi is in relation to Moos, but one would fear to imagine what it's going to be like if he turns around and sees this acceleration coming from Tom Danielson also.
Tommy Danielson also making a move, and he's got rid of Simoni. Now he's waited so that his teammate Leipheimer had a little bit of a gap, and he has also attacked Simoni. So the Team Discovery Channel boys are now heading on a 1-2 mission here, because I think Simoni made the move at the bottom, hasn't quite got the finishing touches to his form yet.
Tom Danielson, winner of the Tour of Georgia a couple of years ago on a dramatic battle on Brasstown Bald with Floyd Landis. Here's Levi just 11 seconds behind, and there he is passing all the riders in the breakaway. That's Blautzun wiping his advantage out. They start at the bottom of the climb with a 4-minute lead, and that is obviously down to zero. Ryder Hagedal just in front of Levi, but look at the progress he's making, just streaking right past these men. Anthony Colby hanging tough too. There's Hagedal. Colby, the last man before Moos, and Levi Leipheimer in front of the finish line.
Well, that is a tremendous piece of riding, but we are still to get onto the really hard section of this climb. Anthony Colby just up at the top of our picture. That is the jersey of Alexander Moos, merging in a magnificent crowd. But Leipheimer is riding like a man possessed. He must be ruining the day now when he was back in that main field that lost almost 30 minutes. He won the time trial yesterday, and there's now only one man ahead of him here. Here's the battle for the yellow jersey between Brackovic and Van der Velde. Still Van der Velde is setting the pace, and not surprisingly, Brackovic is doing the following.
Brackovic just needs to sit on the wheel of Christian Van der Velde. He cannot give an inch. If he gives an inch, Van de Velde likely to take a mile, so Brajkovic has to be very careful here. Van de Velde needs to keep accelerating and try to eventually somehow get away from this man, Yanni Brajkovic, leader of the Vuelta a España for 3 days last season and having a great ride in the Tour of Georgia, was the best of the breakaway in the time trial, finds himself in the race leader's jersey. Now it's Brajkovic's race to lose. He's got to stay right on that wheel of Christian Van de Velde.
That's absolutely right, Bob. And he knows if he can survive in yellow by the end of this day, the chances of Van de Velde winning this race will be greatly reduced with 2 days to go. No huge mountains in the remaining 2 days, none at all. In fact, this is the end of the mountains as far as the King of the Mountains competitions go today. And Brajkovic just checking over his shoulder there, keeping an eye on who's behind him. But all he's got to do is not dislodge from the back wheel of Christian Van der Velde. And Van der Velde, do you think he doesn't know that? 2 kilometres to go to the summit as we now go forward here to Leipheimer. There's his quarry. And you can tell by the way Alexander Moos is beginning to rock and roll and zigzag. This is going to be a very quick kill for Levi Leipheimer.
Moose there struggling. You can see the shoulders rolling from side to side, trying to get every inch of power left in. But look at how smooth and powerful Levi Leipheimer is, just wailing right past Moose. Moose has to look over, just about getting whiplash. Levi Leipheimer coming up on his wheel so quickly and straight past.
I must say I feel a bit sorry for Alexander Moos there. He's 35 in December this year. And Levi took him far and wide, and that's the best way to do it. It was a bit further down when we saw the other two riders. Looking through the signboard, I thought the other sign was 2 kilometres. It was probably 5. 2 kilometres to go then for the two leaders here. The last kilometre is the really steep section of the climb. Moose is going to have to fight and hang on now, but there's still other riders closing the gap behind. He has this beautiful riding style, reminiscent of the climbing style of Lance Armstrong, who's also been so successful on Brasstown Bald. Meanwhile, let's go back a kilometre or so down the mountain and see the battle for first place overall. It's still all the way, it's the Van der Velde doing the pacing and Brajkovic doing the following. That's the way it's going to be.
That's what he needs to do. Van der Velde, on the other hand, he needs to get away from Brajkovic somehow. I don't know how he's going to do that. In between Levi, our leader, and this group here of the GC battlers is Tommy Danielson. So Tommy D with Gilberto Simoni. There's Danny Pate, originally in the breakaway early, still with some energy to make some tempo. Sonia Duval rider. One would imagine that was Davide Cagnata on the wheel. They're just struggling on Brajkovic's wheel. Here's our leader coming up to Brasstown Bald. Now this is a very interesting climb. It goes up incredibly steep for a few Ks, and then it flattens off for a few hundred meters and then kicks back straight up. But the last kilometer, all straight up and a very tough section of road.
Gosh, when Leipheimer's on form, this guy looks so relaxed here. It's almost a cakewalk for him. You see the steepness of that gradient now, and he's just gone into it, no problems at all. That's Moose behind, still hanging on to second place, but those riders behind are coming back at him. And they're not too far down the slopes as well. He's Tommy Danielson somewhere, but we haven't got enough cameras to cover the splits. There is Pate, and I think Van der Velde will be very grateful to Danny Pate for that little bit of pacemaking, but Pate has paid the price, and he's now dropping off the pace, as Van der Velde again now will have to try and lift the pace. Remember the words of Christian Van der Velde at the start this morning, and this is where it starts, this is where it bites, and this is where he'll look for 12 seconds.
This is the last kilometer, just about 100 yards of flats, and then it goes straight up to the finish line. What a spectacular climb it is, and the crowds have come out to greet this man, Levi Leipheimer, storming up the mountain. He will definitely regret giving that breakaway a 30-minute advantage a couple of days ago, dominating the time trial, and now so far dominating the climb to Brasstown Bald.
The only consolation prize is it's his teammate Brajkovic who's in the lead, and so it's not all downhill at all for Levi Leipheimer. He's looking for his second win, while Discovery look to keep the overall lead. We'll be back. The mountain is almost conquered here at Brasstown Bald for Levi Leipheimer. He started about 2 minutes behind the leaders at the bottom. He's eaten his way through them all now as he rides towards his second stage win in as many days. 500 metres to go. He still will not have recovered anything like enough time to win this race, Bob. But who will take the lead at the top from the other two?
Two riders chasing this man, Brajkovic and Van de Velde, locked into a really tough battle, but no one will stop this man on today's stage. Levi Leipheimer just beginning to show some strain on his face, but so far, that's the first moment we've seen that. He's been easily able to distance himself from his competitors, Simoni and his teammate Tommy Danielson, somewhere down the mountain. And here is the race for the GC. Van de Velde accelerating hard. Brajkovic so far looking very smooth, very steady, able to counter all the attacks by Van de Velde so far. Brajkovic doesn't look to be in too much trouble at all.
I tell you what, he's not in any trouble at all here, and Van de Velde knows he's got to try and break him on this steep section of the climb. But what glances we get at the face of Brajkovic, he is not under any pressure. He's doing all he has to do. He won't be thought the worst off for not helping Van de Velde. Why should he? It's up to Van de Velde now to prise open a 12-second gap. And if Christian doesn't do it in the next kilometre or so, he'll lose the Tour.
He will definitely have more time to make up at the end of this if he can't get rid of Brajkovic, more time than is possible in the last two stages of the race. Meanwhile, at the front, going for the stage win is Levi Leipheimer, 300 meters before the finish, but this climb does not let up, and hopefully the legs will not give out before the finish. What a great stage win it would be for Levi Leipheimer, his second on the gallop in this year's Tour of Georgia.
Well, he'll be looking also for his 5th win of the year, which will equal all of the wins he had 12 months ago throughout the whole season. So he's off to a great start, and he's establishing himself as a real big favourite for this year's Tour de France. As he climbs now to the top of Brasstown Ball, this is the domain last year of his teammate Tommy Danielson, who won up here and went on to finish second overall behind Floyd Landis. Well, Leipheimer now is out for glory. We're into the barriers, always a good sign. The finish is not very far away. The crowd shouting at him because they've watched him on television climb his way up to the summit. This, believe me, is around about at 24% now, the gradient just here.
Absolutely agonizing few hundred final meters on this climb. It keeps getting harder and harder, steeper and steeper, and that is a cruel joke to play on the peloton after such a hard stage and such a hard week of racing in the Tour of Georgia.
He's just got to switch back on himself now, and then he'll be underneath the finishing banner. He's got no fears now. He's climbed away from the field. Meanwhile, the battle for the race lead continues. Well, I take my hat off to Christian Van der Velde. He's led this climb all of the way. He's not been able to shake off, though, the limpet at the back there. Number 13 mixing up is Michael Bladson. He was hoping he could get in there and help his teammate Van der Velde. Didn't have the legs. Now, as it kicks up again, Brajkovic, is this a little reminder to tell Van der Velde that he's going to come back at him?
Van der Velde putting in an attack right there, a little bit of an acceleration. Brajkovic coming across to his shoulder, leaving the wheel, putting himself out in the wind a little bit, then going right back onto it when the road straightens out, just to remind Christian that, hey, I got some legs left too, but keep on trying.
I tell you what, this is a battle for real time here. There's no time bonuses at the top. The time is what you finish with. These boys could be both finishing in exactly the same time at the moment, and that means the 12-second difference will still exist tomorrow morning. And do you think Brajkovic isn't thinking that right now?
2 stages to go, but this is the battle for GC for the overall win in the Tour of Georgia. Brajkovic now starting to struggle a little bit, leaning closer to the stem on that bike, getting down on the bars, trying to get every inch of power that he can out of the machine. Coming up to the shoulder of Van der Velde now. See if Van der Velde has one last acceleration in the legs.
Well, there's the remnants of the breakaways. They're bringing them all back in their private battle here. Very personal battle for the race leadership in the Tour of Georgia. A battle which Levi Leipheimer this year is not involved in anymore, as he now climbs up towards the finishing line for win number 5 this year. A triumph in the time trial yesterday, a runaway triumph on the mountain today. Normally, that would have won him the race. Not so this year, but it certainly won him the day today. Levi Leipheimer's triumphed on the top of Brasstown Ball. He points at his jersey, 2 wins in 2 days. Now, to make a perfect day, they need Janis Brajkovic, his teammate, to keep that yellow jersey.
Brajkovic needs to stay on the wheel of Van der Velde to complete what Levi started for the Discovery team on the day. What a great season Levi is having. Brajkovic hanging tough. Van der Velde starting to run out of roadway. He needs to make an acceleration if he's capable of it and get those 12 seconds back from Brajkovic. Here's Tommy Danielson.
Well, that's amazing. We didn't see him come through, but he cut through all the breakaway here. Tom Danielson gets second, a 1-2 for Discovery Channel. The day just gets better and better for the American team. Here's the sprint for the line, 100 metres to go. Christian van der Velde almost tried to go, then he sat back down. He knows he's not going to get 12 seconds. As he sticks to the back wheel there, Brakovic will keep his overall lead on the day. And the man who has won the day and conquered Brasstown Bald is Levi Leipheimer.
We're on a roll, and I'm very happy about today. I think winning on top of Brasstown Bald is definitely one for my record book, so I'm proud of that.
And well, he might be. He wins by 38 seconds from his teammate Tommy Danielson. Anthony Colby, a brilliant ride by Anthony for Colavita in third. Christian van der Velde taking 9th place on the day. Brakovic right behind him. Brakovic is still the leader with 2 days to go, and I would imagine that he is pretty happy about that, right?
Christian attacked like at least 20 times he tried, but as I said, I would rather die than being dropped by him, because that was the chance of the life to maybe win a race.
I'm happy with the performance for sure. I mean, Yanni's a class act. I mean, he's going to be a big future in cycling, and I have no qualms about getting second place with Yanni Brakovic, but still the race is not over.
Graciously said, Christian, as Yanis Brakovic keeps all of his 12 seconds he had at the start of the day. David Cañada sits there in third place, Patoliati in fourth, and Kevin Steele-Dryers of Belgium, he is in fifth. There are still 2 days to go in the Tour de Georgia. Stay with us and see what happens.
Well, it was a great
Welcome back. 221 miles remaining in the Tour de Georgia. The mountains are now all behind, and Christian van der Velde is still 12 seconds off the yellow jersey. But enjoying the moment, I think.
Yanni Brakovic, leader, defending so well on the Brasstown Bald stage and in the time trial. Here's a starter's pistol. He'll be going from Lake Lanier Islands all the way down to Stone Mountain. A day for the sprinters, presumably, but we've had a bunch of those, and none of them have worked out that way so far. This race not over yet. Brakovic with the flat tire, that'll be a bit of a problem for Team Discovery.
You're right about that, Bob. It's not over until we get to the finish, and a flat tire at this stage of the race, a little bit concerning. But bet your life his Discovery Channel team will wait for this. There's Johan Brunel checking out, making sure the mechanic does a good job. And back on the road for his number one charge. And I bet he wasn't expecting to push the yellow jersey off on the shoulders of Brakovic at the start of this race. He was expecting Danielson or Leipheimer, but he's living up to the names. So this is the main field all together as they course the way down towards Stone Mountain now as we get into the National Park. A chance, as you say, Bob, no doubt for the sprinters, and CSC feeling they have the man in J.J. Haedo.
J.J. Haedo, one of the fastest men in cycling, started his career here in North America, at least of note internationally, by winning stages of Tour of California as well as the Tour of Georgia. He would love to repeat that again on today's stage. He has a great chance.
Well, there's the bell. We'll wait now for the finish. It is going to be a day for the sprinters as they come into view now. The perfect lead out for the teams and a quick attack on the far right. But this looks like Fast Freddy is trying to make his move in the dead centre with his head down. Remember that Rodriguez was the man who won in Dahlonega last year when he caught them off guard on a small hill. And I think he's done it again. And Haedo was right alongside him.
Haedo coming up on the outside, but not quite enough for Fred Rodriguez. Great stage win.
So Freddie Rodriguez licking his lips. It was worth catching that late flight from Brussels to start this race because he's got a win here again in the Tour de Georgia. And Brakovic can tick off another day with only 1 day to go in that leader's jersey now before it's a winner's jersey. Well, let's have a quick word then with Fast Freddie Rodriguez, the winner today.
It was kind of a difficult position because everybody knew I really wanted to go for the stage win today. So the other teams are wondering why I sent somebody in a breakaway. But you never know. Racing, it has a lot of tactics, and today was one of those days where it worked out.
It certainly did. Same time for everyone today. JJ getting second. George Hincapie has been getting better every day. Back from injury now into third slot. David Miller showing us he can sprint as well as time trial, crossing the line in a great fourth finish for him. Well, life gets sweeter all the way for Freddie. And so does the size of his family.
The traditional gift of a little child for the stage winner. Yanni Brakovic, though, still leading the bike race.
And David Cañada there, a distant 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Just 1 day to go now, and the final showdown in downtown Atlanta, when this man hopes he'll be crowned champion of the Tour de Georgia. Stay with us.
Tim Leandro.
So the big finish of the Tour of Georgia here in downtown Atlanta. This is where we have added on one extra day of racing and one extra day of entertainment as well, because the Expo down at the start-finish line there being enjoyed by everybody who all want to be now riders in the Tour of Georgia, and I can't blame them for that. Great moments, Bob, for everybody to enjoy themselves and maybe even win a few, Bob, here.
Spin the wheel for some waffles from Waffle House. Can't beat that.
And this is Centennial Olympic Park. Last time I was in Atlanta, I have to admit, was for the Olympic Games back in 1996. That was the first year, by the way, when they opened up to professional cyclists. And this is Michael Ward playing at the national anthem, top guitarist.
Top cyclist as well, Michael Ward, very talented on the bike, but he makes his living with the guitar. Riders enjoying as well, Simone and Van de Velde. One of the Lotto riders from Belgium might never have heard that rendition of the national anthem before.
Well done, Michael. Well, the riders are off on 9 circuits here. Meanwhile, this is the arrival of the Briar Rose Grand Peloton, and part of the Tour de Georgia fundraising, and of course the main beneficiary will again be the Georgia Cancer Coalition. In the orange in the centre there is Floyd Landis. Shortly will be his hearing to try and defend his disqualification in the Tour de France.
It's a complicated defense, and we have a lot of it posted on our Floyd Fairness Fund website, and if people really want to educate themselves about the science, they can have a look at it. But in the end, it was never a positive test to begin with.
Well, that's an answer we hope to have during the month of May. Meanwhile, these are the leaders here as they get out front, and a little bit of more trouble there for Yanis Brajkovic, who's had to rejoin the back of the field. But he knows all he's got to do today, Bob, is finish in this big pack. Victory is his.
Follow his teammates, George Hincapie there, Levi Leipheimer and Tommy Danielson. Here's our leaders, Kirk O'Bee, Ben-Jock Main. He looks to be having a flat tire as well. And that's Cesar Grajales, winner of the Brasstown Bald Stage a couple of years ago. There's Brajkovic, the race leader. What a great ride he did yesterday to defend that jersey. Christian Van de Velde had a good day out on the roads, but couldn't dislodge Brajkovic from the jersey.
Big chase down coming from the main field now, because J.A. Haido yesterday, beaten by Freddie Rodriguez, will not want it to happen this time around as he lines up for the finish now. Again, Fast Freddie trying to get in on the action, but here comes the rush from the back. A slightly different finish to yesterday, and the CSC rider Haido is having none of this now as he dodges out of the middle, as he races for the line now. Haido comes up to take the stage, wins it on the line. He got 2 last year, he gets 1 this year. Freddie gets second to him this time, reversal of yesterday's, placing Sergei Lagutin taking 3rd place for Navigators, and these are all sprinters. Hincapie, the top man, in 5th place there for Discovery. Well, let's have a word then with JJ Haido. I'm sure he's a very happy man finally getting the win.
I was maybe 3rd, 4th wheel the last 200 meters, but I knew it was still a good position because the way the sprint was, so it was still hard to pass Freddie. I think he went too long.
Obviously, I want to be a stage racer, so the biggest goal is, of course, Tour de France, but we'll have to wait a few years for that, but hopefully in a few years I'll be there fighting for the best positions overall.
Well, I reckon he'll have at least 10 cracks at winning the Tour de France. He's so young, but he's won this one by 12 seconds over Van der Velde and 3 minutes 4 seconds over David Cañada. He's had a little bit of a renaissance. Well, as we look here at all of the big winners of this year's Tour of Georgia, let's remember Don Schmill, the hospitality organiser and one of the team of the Tour of Georgia, who passed away midway through the organising of this year's great race. And we'll all think of Don. Well, there are all the winners. We'll see you all again. For Bob Roll, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.